We're rolling.
We are rolling.
Podcast number 1. This is pretty exciting. I'm here with Jim Witter. This is the first podcast for Darren Walters in session. And he decided to have one of my best buddies to come join me. And of course, I think everyone would know Jim Witter. Jim just finished a show in my theater, The Piano Man, like an hour ago. Not even that.
Nope. And that's why my voice is a little scratchy, because I sang pretty hard today.
Yeah, me too.
I had a fun time.
I was singing off to the side.
Were you?
No, it was great. It's funny hearing the show because for those listening don't know, I started.
You were let's say where you really did start. You started playing in my band in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then when I started doing these Billy Joel, Elton John tribute type shows, you became my front of house guy, my road manager, and you traveled with me for years.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah.
Like what was the first show? Do you remember what the first show was?
I do remember where the first show was.
It was
the Oakville
yeah.
Performing Arts Center.
Yeah.
And I remember that very clearly because this idea for this show, this was kind of after my solo career, stopped, but I was held up with Curb Records for years, and they didn't put product out on me, and then I kind of lost the momentum. And I was in the middle. I couldn't get out of my deal with Curb, and I couldn't go with another record company. I couldn't release anything independently, and it was I was just kind of in limbo. And I thought, I still want to perform. I want to do. So I came up with the idea to do these Billy Joel, Elton John throwback to the 70s, more of a multimedia trip back to the 70s with their music as the soundtrack. And I literally thought, if I can get a handful of these around the area, that'd just be something fun to do, and maybe do it a few times a year. Never even once dreamed that here we would be 18 years later and we're still doing 80 to 100 shows a year of this.
It's cool, watching it today and thinking about when we started with the shows. I remember going out. I mean, it's better than it's ever been, but yet it's still doesn't seem like you've done it like thousands of times, and you have done it thousands of times. It just felt like it doesn't, I've seen so many acts come in and you can tell they've done, I've done this show like so many times.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're forcing the smile and there's some stick stuff in the show that's been there pretty well from day one.
Yeah.
And it's as fresh as it's ever been, which is really cool.
I think that's my acting skills.
Yeah, that's exactly.
No, but
Yeah.
What I really think it is about is the fact that this is the music that I grew up listening to. I love this music. As a songwriter, I'm always just in awe of the music of guys like Billy Joel, Elton John, who can just craft an absolutely perfect pop song that has all the elements that you want in a song, but also remains very sincere. There's something very sincere about this music. And so when I go out and sing it night after night, I just feel really privileged to be able to do that. But at the same time, I'm in awe every show at these songs. I get lost in the songs and the incredible craftsmanship that it took to make these.
Yeah, you sing the crap out of them. That's really good.
Thanks.
Like today, you're just like you don't hold back at all.
No, I didn't.
Especially
feel
the Manilow stuff. It's just like it's good.
And the Manilow stuff is really, really fun to sing because for a singer, it's extremely dynamic. You really explore your entire range. I mean, you're down low and you're up right in the stratosphere.
Yeah.
I never really knew that those songs would be like that as a listener. It wasn't until I started learning the songs and dissecting them. And so as a singer, they're really, really fun to sing. And I give it. And that's, again, why my voice is hacked right now.
It's a lot to put out.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of singing.
Well, let's go back. I don't even think I know most of your, I've known you for 25 years, maybe more.
Yeah.
So you live in Hamilton, but did you grow up in Hamilton?
Yeah. I mean, I live in the house that I was born and raised in.
Wow.
Which is a cool...
Me too.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, for me, that's a really cool thing. And it's a cool story on my end in that I was very fortunate to grow up in this beautiful old house. And when Rebecca and I got married, we lived in an apartment just a few kilometers away from the house. And I remember distinctly my folks at the time had that house, and they had the property up. They had a property in Collingwood in the mountains, and my dad had designed and built this house. My brothers and I built this house in Collingwood. And at first it was just sort of one of these casual things where they would go up for the weekend or go up for a week. But we all knew they're going to probably retire up there and move up there. And it was right around the time that we were in this apartment, Rebecca and I, and we were just had our first child, James. Yeah. He was a baby. And they said, are you guys interested in the house? Because we don't want to sell it just to anybody. We'd love to keep it in the family. My mom loved that house. And so for us, that was a dream come true. So I remember approaching Rebecca, though, about it and going, what do you think? Because I thought maybe she might think it was weird. Yeah. But she loved that. She loves the house, and we've been there ever since. We haven't moved. So I've been in the same house, albeit for maybe a year and a half. Yeah. When we got married, we were in that apartment.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful house. It's a beautiful spot of town.
It is. Hamilton used to get I think Hamilton's getting a bit more of it's becoming a bit more of an arts-driven kind of town. But once upon a time, Hamilton had, it was Steel City and blue collar. And, when you would say you were from Hamilton, people would kind of go, ooh, too bad. I'm real sorry for you.
Not quite as bad as saying you're from Brantford. That's where I was born. Thank you.
Or Sarnia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm kidding.
Actually, it's way better there too. I drove
kidding.
past there the other day, and I went across the state. It's like, wow, this place is like boomed. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Really yeah. So these towns like Hamilton and Sarnia and even Brantford have changed a lot, and it's nice because I think the neighborhood that we're in Hamilton was definitely one of those sort of hidden gems. Like you drive down that street, the trees are 100 years old, and you just kind of go, whoa. Like it's like stepping into another city, another province almost.
So was the piano the first thing you did?
No, the first thing I did was guitar, and my folks bought me a used electric Ibanez Strat copy, and my dad made me an amplifier.
Wow.
He got an old stereo amplifier that my brother Charlie was throwing out, and an old speaker, and he rigged it all up with a little input jack. And so all I had was volume. That was it. But I plugged that guitar in there, and my brother Rob taught me how to play, and that was my first instrument. And I was in my first band when I was, I think 11 years old.
So what age did you actually start playing?
Like literally, like 11. That. I started playing guitar, and 2 months later, started a band, and it was called Magic Carpet.
Wow!
And it was myself on guitar and vocals, and a friend of the family. He had a snare drum. He had a snare drum and a cymbal. That's it.
And one step away from a banjo.
But but just wait, it gets better. We had not one, but two tambourine girls.
Wow.
They wore matching outfits, Sherry and Rhonda, and they played tambourine. And we played gigs. We actually played gigs. It was so much fun.
I was thinking the other day, I don't think there's the opportunity for younger kids to put bands together anymore. It's, growing up, you heard it all the time. Your friends were in bands. They put bands together. And I know it from my nephew now, Skylar, love to throw him in a band with kids his age, but there's nobody.
There's nobody out there doing it. And it's a lost art, and it makes me very sad. A few years ago, my youngest, Luke, who's now 13, started playing the drums. Exact same thing. I thought, oh, this is great. He's gotten to a point now where he should join a band, get some of his friends together that play instruments. And so I thought, this is going to be a perfect opportunity to use social media to find other kids that are out there. And I've got like, I don't know, thousands of friends on Facebook, like 4,000 or 5,000 friends. So I thought, I'm going to just put it out there, and then I'll just have to weed through all the responses I get.
Yeah.
So I put it out there. 11-year-old looking for kids around his age to get together and jam. Looking for a guitar player, bass player, maybe keyboard player, maybe a singer. I got 2 responses.
Wow.
And one was, my kid can kind of play, but can't really play a song. And then the other one was, my kid likes to sing, but... And I was absolutely flabbergasted. If I put out a post about what I ate for lunch, I'd get, 400 responses. This looks delicious.
Yeah.
Give me the recipe, blah, blah, blah. I got 2 responses.
It's weird. I think part of it is, obviously, when we grew up, there was nothing else to do.
No,
I mean, there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was
Nope.
I remember just my youth in front of a record player.
Yep.
Back when the biggest thing is I remember trying to learn how to play the saxophone after I learned the violin. I think one of the next things I played was the sax, and I sat down with a Boots Randolph record and put the needle down and try to learn the yakety sax, which is the hardest thing in the world. But there's no rewinding, slowing things down. You just try to put the needle down, listen to the first 2 bars, and you lift it up again.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, it was so much harder to learn back then too, and you didn't have YouTube videos to learn, gee, what is that chord there? You had to just either figure it out for yourself, or find the sheet music, which was often wrong, or find a friend or somebody who knew. I love the story of McCartney saying when him and George Harrison, when they were just really young and learning their instruments, they heard of a guy in town that knew a B7 chord. Ooh. And they got their instruments, they got their guitars, and they got on the bus, and they went across town, and they went to this guy's house, and he taught them a B7 chord. Now, nowadays, I don't think kids would, I don't even think a lot of kids would even bother searching that on YouTube or on any platform. It's definitely social media and all the electronics and devices have definitely taken over, and it kind of scares me, because it makes me think that the art of playing and learning an instrument it's going to be gone eventually.
I think the ones who are really good are the ones who are that pop through. You see on YouTube, you'll see a young kid that blows your mind, and they're 6 or 7.
Yeah,
and those are the ones, but you don't see the ones that are in between.
No.
And, eventually those are all the B and C player guys who's going to play in the local bar band or country band or whatever there is.
Exactly.
And, we need to fill from A to, C or D, but I don't think it's going to be there.
I remember in high school, like always being in a band. Now, the players weren't always great, but we worked really hard at it, and you would work for like weeks just getting up like 2 or 3 songs that you could play at the talent show.
Yeah.
And most of the guys that I played with, they didn't go on to do it as a career, and that's okay. I mean, that's fine. Not everybody decides that that's what they want to do, but there were so many. I mean, like I think in high school, I knew half a dozen guys that played guitar pretty well. Like they were pretty good. I think that's going to disappear, sadly.
Yeah, I just don't know where that's going to go. I mean, it is like you said, it's really sad, and I think back at both of us in our youth. That's you ate and thought about that just constantly. It was on your mind, and you just kept on thinking about the next song. And part of it is like, is it the music now? Is it, can you
Maybe.
half the songs on the radio or whatever you're listening to nowadays, you can't even reproduce.
I think it's I think more importantly, it's the instant gratification that this generation is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they want to know something, they can find the information instantly.
Yeah.
When they want to see a movie, they can go online and get it instantly. When they want to hear a song, any song, they can. You remember how? I mean, it was like when you wanted to hear your favorite song, you had to either wait for it to come on the radio, or you had to go to the record store and buy the single or the album and listen to it. So everything is instantly there, and I think that transposes over into learning an instrument. If it's not really easy to do, if I can't instantly sit down and play this song, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and a part of it is, I don't think the youth nowadays, they don't want to work at anything.
No, they don't.
So when you've got something to really have to learn, and it takes a lot of work, and it does, they, like you said, well, let's go play a game, or let's go online, and let's,
Now, here's an example of where, though, positively, I've seen it happen in my family. So last weekend we were at the cottage, and my youngest, Luke, who's 13, was playing with his cousin. They were playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
And the adults were just getting tired of them being on their devices. And so it was just basically, okay, we're shutting down media. And the kids freaked out at first. They didn't like the idea of it. But then about a couple hours later, Luke came to me with this little guitarlele, one of those little that I just bought, little small scale guitar, but it's a 6-string guitar. It's a nice sounding little guitar. And he said, hey, can you show me some chords? He loves this artist, Scott Hellman. He said, can you show me the chords to one of Scott Hellman's songs? So I sat down, I picked an easy one, and it was like a G and a C and a D and maybe an A minor. That was, and I kind of said, now don't expect this to be something that you're going to be able to do right away. Like, just, you're going to have to work at this. Changing chords. When you first learn to play the guitar, changing chords takes a long time. Like, you're going to be slow moving.
Yeah.
And I saw a little frustration for about half an hour, but he stayed at it. And we literally went away, and 3 hours later we come back. He's still at it. And now he's changing chords really fast. And he's playing this song, and it sounds decent. So now he wants to learn another song. And it was almost like, as soon as I took that media away from him, and it wasn't an option anymore. It wasn't even one of those things where you can play that for an hour and then I want you to do something else. It was just gone. His brain just kicked into another gear, and he picked up this guitar, and now he gets up in the morning, he runs downstairs, he grabs that guitar, and he starts playing right away. So it's really encouraging for me to see that happening. The other side of that coin is I also see my kids in the car. And my 18-year-old, Ryan, he actually plays guitar really well, but their attention span for music is it's crazy. I watch him listen to the radio. He'll put a song on. He's like, oh, I love this song. Or even a CD. Or on his phone. He'll Bluetooth through and listen to a song. He won't listen to the whole thing, though. He'll listen to verse, chorus, verse. Oh, next song. Click. The attention span is going, and that's another thing that I think is really affecting why kids are playing music and why they're not playing music.
I think the cell phone, having your iPhone, is such a crutch. And
Yes.
I count myself on this all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, as soon as you have like a minute or 10 seconds that you get bored, like, or there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
You grab your phone.
Yeah.
You're sitting there. Oh, look at my phone. Oh, look at
We're
my phone.
glued to it. I mean, our phones, you and I, our phones are sitting here just waiting for us, right? And we didn't have that when we were kids. And that's why music was, for me anyways, and maybe for some kids it was sports. For others it was academics. Maybe it was reading or writing or art. But for me it was music. It was just like, and people say, when did you learn to play the piano? I say, I was probably like 13 or 14 when I started playing. You didn't start playing the piano until you were 14? I go, yeah. But I remember distinctly I remember sitting at that piano, and like you're saying, dropping a needle onto a record and listening to a little bit and then going, okay, lifting it up and then sitting there and trying to figure out what did I just hear, and trying to figure it out, and spending literally hours a day. Like that was my Nintendo. That was my Xbox, that piano.
And it made, not only were you learning the instrument, you were ear training like crazy.
Like crazy, yeah.
Like you could just put something down. You had to listen so close to figure out what those notes were, and you didn't know what they were. And now, I mean, that's a valuable thing to have in your arsenal.
It's certainly playing by ear. I mean, one thing I remember when my mom said to me, "Do you want to take piano lessons?" And I remember seeing my brothers take piano lessons and hearing them play scales and all that, and just going, "Ooh, piano, gross," and didn't want anything to do with it. I wish now that I'd, of course, years later, had taken piano lessons and learned how to read as well as learned how to play by ear. But if I had to choose which one of those that I could be proficient at, definitely the ear thing.
Yeah, it trumps. Especially, I mean, I guess it depends what you're doing, but if you have to sit in with charts that are written, then but
forget it.
Yeah. I mean, I learned notes when I was young, and man, you put them in front of me now, it's just like, what?
No, you can read.
Well, it would take some time.
I don't think it would.
I remember getting a call from, I forget who called me, and Ray Price was playing Craven Festival, and they were either short a fiddle player or something like that, and they had 3 fiddle players with them, and it was all sheet music. You just sight reading the whole thing, and I probably could have taken the gig, but I was like, I don't want to go there and crap my pants though, because that's what I'd be doing.
Absolutely.
And I could probably, because that stuff wasn't that difficult. There were, a lot of whole note, things. But it had been so long since I looked at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I had it for a day ahead of time, I would have been all over it. But
or if you knew what songs were being done and what part you were covering.
Yeah, you could listen to the parts on the way. At least you'd have an idea and follow along. But it's if you're not doing it every day, it's tough to keep that up.
I find now at my age, I'm 53 now, I'm finding that the ear isn't as acute as it used to be. And by that, I mean, what I really mean by that is it actually is more acute. But I know, like, it used to be when I was younger, I would, listen to a song and then figure it out. And I thought I had it. But I wasn't, some things was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I listen to those songs, I go, oh, wait a minute. I don't quite have that chord right there. And it might be little subtle things, or it might be like, add nines or that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the ear is getting more in tune as I get older. But my ability to know what some of those complex voicings are.
And I think when you're younger too, there's part of you would be like, that's close enough.
Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah.
And then you get older and you realize getting it right is really important. So, I think back when I was younger, you learn a part and you think, yeah, I kind of know the show, and you get by and it was fine. But now if I don't know something perfect, or, or something's wrong, it really bothers me.
And have you found this as you get older? As I get older, my ear and my brain are more in tune with fluctuations in tempo.
Yeah.
So when a song on a record that I used to love as a kid, and I listen to it now, if it speeds up, because, in those days, nobody played the click tracks. So when a song speeds up or slows down, I hear it now, and I never used to hear it. And it drives me crazy. I obsess about it. It's like as you get older, they say that when you see a picture hanging on a wall and it's not perfectly, you get more in tune with that. As you get older, and just the slightest little bit off, you'd be like, oh, that picture's off, and you got to fix it. And
it's totally me.
Yeah.
I'll be on tour, and I'll head during intermission. I'll go up to the merch table,
And
the CDs I'll go straighten every single one of them.
fix everything.
Yeah, all the little signs, I'll straighten them all out, and I can't stand it.
I mean, that's a little bit of OCD, but
Yeah.
it's also because we get finer tuned as we get older. And so it's in music for me, big time. It's reproducing stuff or playing stuff. If I agree with you, if I don't have it perfect, I don't want to play it.
Yeah. So going back with your first band,
Yeah.
playing acoustic.
Magic Carpet.
So were you the lead singer, or
Yeah.
yeah?
Yeah.
So what music were you playing?
Oh gosh, whatever was on the radio, like it was just top 40 songs. And back in those days, that could mean just about anything. And in my second group that I was in, which was called Black Diamond, and that was with Rob Pruce, who later went on to be in The Spoons and Honeymoon Suite, and another guy by the name of Mike Seville. Mike was the drummer, Rob was the keyboard player, I was the guitar player. We played all top 40. So we played Peter Frampton, Queen. Rob still has some of the set lists from some of the shows we did.
Wow.
And it was crazy. I look at the set list now and I go, did we really play Show Me the Way by Peter Frampton and then go right into Una Paloma Blanca?
Yeah, you would.
We didn't know there wasn't no such thing as genres of music. Nobody told us that's a polka song. You guys shouldn't be playing polka songs. You guys are a bunch of young, rock musicians. You should just be playing rock tunes. That's the way top 40 radio was back then.
But back then, probably you were playing and people were dancing.
Absolutely.
So you would want to change it up because people would want to dance something different.
Yeah, and we were probably playing at the German Hall, so we knew, hey, Una Paloma Blanca will go over great with this crowd. So we learned it and we played that, and then we go right from that into like Firehouse by Kiss. Like, I'm not kidding you. Or Shock Me. Can you imagine the look? I'll never forget this. We played Big Al's Talent Showcase. And we played Tie Your Mother Down by Queen. Now, my mom didn't say anything. My dad didn't say anything. Rob's parents, Mike's parents didn't say anything about the song maybe being inappropriate for 12-year-olds to be playing. But I remember playing it, taping the show, and looking at the parents of all the little kids, like the dancers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the parents were like pulling their kids away and putting their hands over their ears because like the lyrics were like, tie your mother down, take your little brother swimming with a brick. That's all right. Tie your mother down and give me all your love tonight. This was a bunch of 12-year-olds singing this, but we didn't know. This was top 40 music. We loved it.
And that was I remember Big Al.
Oh,
that in Tiny Talent Time.
Tiny Talent Time
The
with
two
Bill
of those.
Lawrence.
Yeah. And Big Al is, I know for my brother and sister and I, that was the first time we ever played on TV.
Yeah.
The Walters Family Trio.
Yes. Oh, that's what it was.
We had a Rhythm Master drum machine.
No way.
Yeah. It's a big box thing. I had, exactly like that. I had Rumba 1, Rumba 2, Cha-Cha 1, Cha-Cha 2. Yeah.
And the little knob that changed the tempo.
Yeah. From 1 to 10. It was fantastic. But yeah, I remember playing that show a bunch of times on Big Al.
Yeah.
That was a big deal back then.
Yeah. And he always, I remember always going, what is that smell? He was a boozer.
Oh yeah.
Al was a nice guy. Such a nice guy.
Didn't he wear the blue suit and
white,
white
with the rhinestones?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the white cowboy boots and the white hat. Oh yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then Bill Lawrence on Tiny Talent Time. I'll never forget. You were on that.
Yeah.
On Tiny Talent Time, and I was on it. Unfortunately, somebody asked me recently, can we get a copy of our performance on Tiny Talent Time? And I said, I actually know a lot of people at CHCH, and back in those days, they would tape a show, air it. 6 months later, they would air that same one again.
Yeah.
And then they would use that tape and they'd record another show over it.
Oh yeah.
So all those are gone. But I remember Bill Lawrence took us into his office and did the pre-interview. Because remember how we used to interview kids live on the air? And he would ask you those questions like, if I could snap my finger and make a wish come true, what would it be? And I was always in awe because the kids on that show, their answers, they knew the answers right away. That's what it is. Bill Lawrence takes you into his office and asks you all these questions beforehand and helps you model an answer. Great. Okay. All done. We're good. We get out on the floor and it's time for the interview. He asks us none of the questions that were on the page. And I remember a few of the questions. I just remember just stumbling, going, I guess I want to be prime minister someday.
Yeah, I remember on the Big Al show, or just when you're talking, do you remember when you used to go in there, there was right next to us where they taped the news?
Yeah.
So while Big Al was taping, I remember I used to take off and go and sit in the chairs of the newscasters.
I got pictures.
Yeah.
I got pictures.
But I used to always slightly sabotage the set.
That was you?
I used to go in, they'd have all these, spike tape marks all over the place.
And you'd move them?
I used to put them, stick them on the front of the desk.
That's
and
awesome.
Then watch the next newscast to see if it's still there. And they were there. The one time it was there for a month. There's one piece of white tape on the front of the desk, and it was there forever. So
you were a troublemaker. I was too much of a rule, kind of play by the rules kind of a kid. I remember going into the newsroom and there's nobody in there. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, we shouldn't be in here. We're going to get in trouble. But we sat at the desk. We took some pictures. And that was really cool. But we didn't touch anything.
Yeah. And you think back then, I mean, that was some great TV, and that really was great for, young kids.
Absolutely. Because it would totally encourage you as a child to want to learn either to dance or to play an instrument or sing or whatever it might be, so that you could be on Big Al. Yeah. Because if you got on Big Al, it was a big deal. And same with Tiny Talent Time. You were a star at school. Whereas nowadays, I don't know, maybe people would look at that and go, so-and-so's on Tiny Talent Time. Let's go beat him up, In those days, it was like a big deal, and you were highly regarded for your performances.
Yeah, and now your choice, American Idol. I mean, Canadian Idol doesn't exist any longer.
No.
And then you're stuck with thousands of people just to try to get a spot on TV. What are your chances of getting on?
And I think, again, the other problem with that is, and my daughter Rosalind sings, and so many people said, oh, you should try to get on when Canadian Idol was on. And I said, I will never, ever let her go on one of those shows. And the reason is so much different, right? You could get on Big Al or you could get on Tiny Talent Time, and some of the kids were terrible and some of them were great, but they all got the same spot. They all got the same encouragement. They all got the same applause.
It was equal billing for everybody.
Yeah, equal billing for everybody. And the problem with the American Idol and The Voice and all that, so many people, I think, are slipping through the cracks and having their dreams absolutely crushed because somebody like Simon Cowell says, you're terrible. And okay, a lot of the times I will agree with them, but a lot of times I'll hear an artist that's maybe quirky, that's different, unique, and they'll be like, no, because they can't go up into the stratosphere with their vocal part and hold it there, and so all of a sudden you're no longer considered a good artist. That to me is what's wrong with that particular brand and genre of show.
Yeah. It's when you consider how many of those people who got to the point and got rejected, who are maybe a year away from being really great.
Yeah.
They're just not there yet.
Yeah.
And would leave and think, well, that's it. I'm done.
Done. And that's it, right? Like somebody has told them. And so now hopefully some of those people still go on and try to pursue it. But I mean, if you took 10 of take the top 10 pop artists right now and strip them of their identity and put them on American Idol, I bet you 7 out of 10 of them might not get through that initial audition.
No.
because they're maybe not just technically the greatest singer, but there's something characteristic about them. That's a problem with the music industry now, and that unfortunately, I really think that back in our day, everybody was encouraged, and that's why so many kids were doing it.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it's not. It's great if you. Well, it's not even great if you win.
No, like
I'd rather be third or fourth.
I'd rather be maybe in the top 10. Yeah.
Yeah, because winning, this, you get tied up, and how many people have actually. I mean, there's been quite a few that have done well, but there's quite a few that win that just think that's it.
Yeah.
And about a week later, American Idol's on, and then 2 weeks later, America's Got Talent starts, and you forget about all the people you just were watching every week, and you're on to the next show.
It's just like winning awards. I remember back in the 90s when I was doing country music, and you would get so wrapped up in, oh, I got nominated for this, and then you would get so wrapped up in the whole awards ceremony thing, and if you didn't win, it would crush you. And I remember thinking, well, hang on. If you win the award, what do you actually get? You get about 2 days where you're doing radio interviews, and then that's it. It's like forgotten.
Yeah, it's not. And the weird thing is, you take a lot of the awards. I mean, how many people are actually voting for those?
Yeah.
I mean, you're considered to be the best male vocal singer from these 200 people who voted.
Yeah.
I mean, could be less, could be more.
Right.
And
let's be honest, of those, we've been there.
And 20% of those people probably are qualified to make a real good choice.
And unbiased.
Unbiased, yeah.
Yeah. But hey.
But still, I mean, that's part of anything. I mean, any corporation or any business, they always have their awards.
Yep.
And it's a nice pat in the back. And then there's part of it that, strives you to keep going and keep making music.
But the problem with the awards was, for me, it was like, as soon as the CCMAs was over, it was all about, okay, what can I do tomorrow to start working towards the next award show? Yeah. And it really shouldn't be about that. It really should just be about doing what you love to do, and doing the music that is sincere to you, and that is true to you, and that is true to your heart. And I mean, that's ultimately what longevity is all about.
Yeah.
I
mean, for you, I want to go back, a few more years again, but you've been able to take your career and you can just keep going forever for what you're doing with the Piano Man Show, and you're playing for big audiences all the time, probably bigger than a lot of the artists who have hits on the radio and going out and struggling, have a tour bus, and they go home and count what they made at the end of a tour. Yeah. They paid their manager, their agent, their promoter, and you pay all your fees. And by the time, I look at some of these tours, because I'm out promoting some tours myself, and I know what the numbers are, and I see,
it's crazy.
I look at it and say, well, how can this be possible? Who's making any money?
And the general public doesn't know anything about that. And I remember myself not really knowing a lot about what that was all about. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Faith Hill had her first big hit with the Janis Joplin cover, Take a Little Piece of My Heart. Come on, take a little piece of my heart, baby. And all of a sudden, she's doing big shows. And she got a tour bus and all this. And I remember seeing her in an interview, and they said, the interview basically was, it must be so exciting to have finally made it. And she said, it's so exciting, and I've never been more broke in my life.
Yeah.
Meaning, people don't understand that when you're first starting out like that, even with just maybe with one hit, the cost of going out on the road to promote that is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's interesting following some some artists nowadays. I follow Lindsay L all the time, and she's fabulous on social media and all that. And man, that girl works. I mean, just every day she's flying somewhere and working. And every day I'm like looking at it, it's like, gosh, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. She's playing here, she's playing there. That's a lot of money. And, you know, new album out, first songs done decent, but it's probably not, you know, which, you know, should probably where she'd want it.
Yeah.
But, you know, probably, you know, great, but it's not money making great.
Yeah.
And I said, someone's paying for that. It's no different than it was 30 years ago.
No, it's no different at all.
Yeah, it's, you know, someone's paying for it, but in the end, you're paying for it.
Absolutely. People don't get that too. They, you know, if you get signed with a record company, I remember thinking, my record company's going to pay for, you know, this and that and the other, make the record and all that stuff. And then you have a hit and you go, all right. And you're selling records and you're like, I'm selling records. I'm going to make some money. But the record company needs to recoup all of that money that they spent on you. And you better be careful. I remember, I'm not going to name the artist, but it was an artist that was on Sony. And remember, they spent a couple of $1 million making this record. And I remember thinking, wow, what an absolutely crazy amount of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, the artist doesn't have to physically pay that back. But can you imagine, you know, where you have to be to recoup $2 million for making a record? Like, that's insane.
Yeah, and how many of those got made and got shelved?
This one did.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that career. I was lucky. My first record, I signed with a smaller independent label, FRE Records, Derek Ross. And admittedly, he said, hey, look, we don't have a ton of money to throw at you. And I'm like, that's great, because I don't want to be in debt to you for a crazy amount of money. I want to, let's make this work. So we did it, I think, smart. And that that first record that I made when I went down to Nashville in '92 and wrote with Johnny Douglas, and we wrote that whole album in 3 days, 4 days maybe it was. We wrote the entire album, like 2 songs a day, and then recorded it in about a week. The total cost for producing that first record of mine was $10,000, including producer fees.
Wow.
And it was great because I think that record sold about between 40 and 50,000 copies. So I literally got a check one day. Whereas if I'd spent $2 million making that record and only sold 40,000 copies, it'd be a long time before I'd see any money from that.
Yeah. So let's go back from your band to how you got to, you know, getting your first record deal.
Yeah.
What happened in between there?
So you're saying before my first record?
Yeah.
Deal?
How'd you get to, you know?
So that was, for me, like, I was basically, I came out of high school and I knew I want to do music. I want to be a recording artist. I want to write songs. I want to make records. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but luckily I had a Canadian singer-songwriter icon, Ian Thomas. I won a contest when I was in my last year of high school, and he kind of helped me just save a lot of time. It's like, this is how you have a career in music. You just write songs, make demos, send them to record companies, follow up, blah, blah, blah. So I literally had a system going where I would play in piano bars. I'd play in piano bars at night for 4 hours a night just to make money. That was my job, so I wouldn't have to work during the day. And I literally would write and record my own demos on my little 4-track recorder. And then I had a book, and I would call up record companies in Toronto. And I would talk with these guys, and I would say, hey, is it okay if I send you a demo of, I've just finished 3 new songs. Can I send them to you? And I would, yeah, go ahead. And what should I write on the envelope so I know you'll see it? And Just little things like that.
Yeah.
And then I would literally send it in the mail, and then I would wait about 3 weeks, and I would call them back, and I'd say, "Hey, it's Jim Witter. Did you get my package?" "Oh yeah, Jim. Yeah. Let me just grab my notes." And they would give me constructive criticism. I wasn't having anybody, bang on my door and say, "Oh, we're gonna give this kid a record deal." I did that for like almost 10 years, and then it was Mike Roth from Sony Music and we had developed a relationship, and it was a relationship based on rejection. It literally was, hey, keep working at it. I like that song on the last demo, but here's what I would change, blah blah blah. But keep sending me new stuff. And finally, one day he did say, "Hey," because I was sending demos out as a writer, not as an artist. And he said, "Have you ever thought of being an artist who sings his own songs?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, well, why don't you come in? We'll talk about an artist development deal." And that's when he sent me down to Nashville, worked with Johnny Douglas. We wrote some songs together. We demoed them up in a real studio with real studio musicians. And then that's how my first record deal came to be. But before then, like literally, I was doing the piano bars and the coffee shops and the clubs on the weekends, and I did that for like 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's tough work, but it's important work though.
I think it's super important work because for me, what it taught me was like if you went into a club for a weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, if you wanted to be invited back to do that job again, and there was only so many of them in the area. So, I mean, like, it's not like you had, an unlimited number of places that you could play at.
Yeah.
You had to make the people there want to ask the owner, "Hey, have that Jim guy back." And so I learned very quickly, it wasn't all about the music certainly wasn't about your vocal proficiency or your, whether you're a good keyboard player or a good guitar player. It was about how you engaged the audience. And sometimes you'd only have 5 people there. And you can't let those 5 people get up and leave without leaving some sort of impact on them. So I learned that the thing that the people in clubs and stuff loved was when you were personal with them, when you were just treated them like, "Hey, buddy, can I play something for you? What would you like to hear? You know this song?" "Well, I don't, but I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You come back tomorrow night and I'll know it." "Really?"
Yeah.
"Yeah." And so I would start, and so I had a number of places that I would play at quite regularly. But what I learned was the most important thing about a live performance, if you're one of those artists where your music has been out on the radio and it's been a hit song and people are coming to hear that, they're not just coming to hear that. They're coming to see what you're all about as a person. And so I made it a goal of mine to try to just sort of engage audiences anytime that I could, whether it was 5 people or 15,000 people at some big country fest in, Merritt Mountain Music Fest or something.
You think about what that skill does for you now with the Piano Man show. I mean, just the entertainment skill is so important.
It's absolutely the only reason that I'm still doing what I'm doing, because I'm doing a show that literally should just be at the Holiday Inn in the lounge.
No.
But
some people's version of it would be,
okay,
but not,
but what I mean by that is, so I've added, the visual element to it. I've got a great band. But on top of that, my show is about interaction with the audience and sharing stories and about the 70s, what the 70s meant to me. And you see people in the audience and they'll react to what I say and they'll yell something back to me and I'll talk with them about it. And that's the reason why I'm still doing this show 18 years later and going back to theaters 8, 9 times with sometimes the same show, sometimes with a different show.
Yeah.
But that I can't stress to young, new performers the importance of that. And it's going back to this artist that $2 million was spent on this artist's record, and nobody at the record company, nobody checked to see if that artist could perform live. Oh, yeah. And I'll never forget, because you were there, but I'm not going to say any names, but you were there.
You're going to tell me after.
You were there, and it was a big show. It was Hamilton Place, and it was a big show, and it was this artist, and then myself, and then I can't remember. It was a big, big country artist at the time.
Yeah. I know exactly who
yeah.
you know.
And
yeah.
I remember the performance, and I remember it was technically good, but there was absolutely no engagement with the audience whatsoever. And within 3 songs, it was so boring. And I remember seeing the record company execs backstage, because I was on the same label, and they were losing their mind, running down the hall going, "Oh my God, what have we done?" And it was the realization, oh, this artist can't perform. We've got a lot of work to do here. But by that point, it was almost too late, because everything was already launched.
Yeah.
I can't tell young new artists, I can't stress how important it is to learn how to just engage and be yourself and engage with an audience and have fun with an audience, because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, it's so important. Even just simple things like visual contact. And you see so many people, and one person's looking off here, another person. It's like, as soon as you look at your audience and be able to see a person here and see a person there and make contact, and it's just something there, it just brings everybody in.
It absolutely does. And it still does for me when I go see a show. If I'm close enough to the stage and the artist looks right at me, there's a feeling that gives you. So yeah. And you'll hear a lot of performance coaches say, look over the tops of people's heads to avoid being nervous or whatever it might be. I think nerves really come from a place, because I used to get really nervous performing. I don't get nervous even slightly now. And I think it's all about confidence. Yeah. It's about knowing that what you do a good job at it. So, but that takes years, right? That takes years.
It takes forever, yeah.
To get that confidence.
It's not confidence that, I know I'm a great player and I know I'm a great singer. It's confidence knowing if I screw up, I know I can make myself look good.
Absolutely.
Because I can laugh at it, I can make a joke out of it, I can do whatever, and not all of a sudden just clam up. And now everyone notices that something bad happened. And that's, you just feel confident that, I can get the job done. And
because who doesn't screw up?
Everybody does.
Everybody does. And that's the other thing I tell people. I say, if an audience comes to see you, the thing you have to keep in mind is they want you to be good. They want to enjoy themselves, but also they want to know you're a human being. So making mistakes, and luckily I make lots of mistakes. It's almost, it definitely, it humanizes you to an audience and makes them realize, okay, well, I love what that artist does, but he's also a human being like me. And that is absolutely a huge part of learning to not be nervous, is just knowing that everybody makes mistakes. Just get up there, do your thing. They want you to be good.
Yeah.
They want to enjoy the show. They're not judging you. Your audience isn't there to judge you. That's on American Idol and all those. This audience is there to have a good time. You have a good time too. It'll really show up. But yeah, the whole bit of looking over people's heads or imagining them in their underwear and all that kind of stupid stuff, I don't think any of that works. I think eye contact, individual eye contact, is imperative. It's imperative.
Yeah, and being able to just engage in between songs and being able to feed off the audience. And really, when it comes down to it, you might make a mistake. And how many people in the audience actually know?
You're going to make a mistake.
Yeah, but most people will have no idea that you made a mistake.
Yeah.
You could play the wrong. I've had a couple groups I've worked with in the past. One was, it was unreal. The show was great. As you know, a front person was fantastic. I don't want to say who it was, but the front person was fantastic. The drummer was horrible. And his fill-in guy, and it was one of these shows where they throw out a lot of songs and you just had to, go with the flow.
Yep.
But could not play in 6/8. And I don't think he ever played in 6/8 or 3/4 at all. Didn't know the difference between straight and shuffle.
Oh, that's funny.
And it was weird because I've never sat in a show where I've seen drumming that just ended in such a disaster.
Yeah.
He had chops, he could play,
Yeah.
but didn't know that era of songs.
Right.
And I think, oh gosh, these people are really going to complain. And after the show, people coming up to me, it was at our venue, saying, man, that drummer, and I'm just waiting for it.
Yeah.
And they're like, he's fantastic. And what it was, he was almost so scared that he had this kind of deer in the headlight look, and he was playing, and he was just like, oh my God. And his expression and his body movement, I knew it was going through his head.
Yeah.
But as an audience member, they're looking, look at that drummer.
He's so into it.
He's just, look at him.
He's giving her.
Yeah. But he was scared.
Yeah, that's
but
great.
that just shows you what people rather see, the visual.
Oh, absolutely.
And see that you're, in their minds, they thought he was having a great time and he was really just giving it.
Yep.
And even though it was the opposite, when it comes down to it, people were loving him, and it's fantastic.
We get that comment almost every night, because I go to the lobby after the show and talk to people, and they always say, "You guys look like you're having a really good time up there."
Yeah.
And I always tell them that's because we are. Like, first of all, we don't take ourselves seriously, because it's not brain surgery or anything like that. It should be a fun business. And I encourage the guys in the band to have a good time. And, after a show, sometimes, one of the guys will go, oh man, I really, I'm sorry I let you down tonight. I really screwed him. It's like, do you think, first of all, that any of the things you're talking about, if you missed a fill on this, or you missed this note or whatever, do you think, first of all, most of the time I don't notice. Do you think any of the audience ever notices?
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about how they perceived you had a good time. And it looks like we have a good time because we do have a good time. And that's the number one most important thing.
Yeah. But there is a part of it, I think, ownership of something can be important if you're new to a gig or filling in. If you screw up, I always tell a lot of the tech guys I send out on the show, if you do something, if you're front of house, you're doing lighting or whatever it is, and you mess up,
own it. Yeah.
Intermission after the show, straight to the artist, say, hey, I'm sorry I missed that cue, or this happened.
Yeah.
I'll try to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's like, great. But if you don't say anything, and I've been on the other end where I'm on stage and something I know has happened.
Yeah.
Went in front of house or for lighting, whatever it could be.
Yeah.
And you sitting there, it's like, did they know that happened?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or did they screw up? And because you don't know.
Yeah.
So do you need to bring it up, or do you wait till the next time?
Yeah.
If someone comes to you and say, yeah, I'm sorry, man. And it's like, great, no problem.
Yeah.
But if you don't say anything, then it sits in your head for, until the next show. You don't know. It's like, oh gosh, what happened?
I do it. I own up every night after the show. I'll say, if I have a particularly bad show technically, for whatever reason, just, clunkers. Today's show, I had some serious clunkers there. And it's like, right after the show, I was like, oh, geez, I'm sorry, guys. I really, But it's not, I'm apologizing, but I'm just more acknowledging that, hey, I'm human. It's okay. I screw up. You guys screw up once in a while. That is hugely important, because I would rather have somebody playing in my band who owns up to their mistakes, as opposed to somebody who makes an excuse like, "Oh, the reason I did that tonight was because of this," or
Yeah, because the excuse thing, you can, that gets old really quick. Because you can,
Really
you maybe get one in, but if you're working with someone who's polished, you can see through that in a second. And we all know guys that do that. And,
Oh yeah,
and it's just one of those things. I think what ownership is, when you make a mistake or you've done something that maybe you didn't feel was good, and you just say, "Hey, guys, sorry," at the end, sorry about that. It proves to everyone you're working with that you actually care.
yep,
And that you actually, care the fact that, yeah, I'm sorry that, it's not that you're letting anyone down or,
No.
or any of that. It just shows that I'm in this, I care,
Yep.
it means a lot to me, I'm sorry that happened.
yeah.
And
I'll
it's
try
like-
not to make it happen again.
Yeah. And then, then it just rolls off and you never
Yeah.
think about it again.
Yeah.
You're done.
I mean, I have one guy in my band who apologizes probably every night and doesn't need to.
Yeah.
And that just shows me that there's a great deal. He loves the gig and he feels bad, but I also feel like, am I making him feel like he's not worthy of this or something, and that he has to apologize to me all the time? It's like, and he'll say, sorry, I really screwed up tonight. I'll be like, did you hear me?
I think the best situation, and I love this when you're on stage, and you guys obviously are like this, your group, if you make a mistake, everyone laughs.
Yeah. Oh,
And,
yeah.
and if everyone laughs,
Oh, yeah.
then it's,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yep.
And I've worked, and I'm so used to doing that. And I've been in situations where, I've been playing with someone or someone's playing with me on a show somewhere, and they make a mistake, and I kind of turn around and I laugh, and they just look at you.
Like, what are you laughing
And
at?
it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, you almost feel like, oh, well, you made a mistake there. I was
Yeah.
just laughing.
Yeah.
And they're so scared to admit that they did something
That they
wrong.
made a mistake, yeah.
That, it's like, okay, no, I hear a lot of things. I hear every little tiny thing that goes on. I just so used to being tuned into everything. So it's just like, that's funny. You made a mistake. That was really funny.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for people to take offense that, oh, was he laughing?
Yeah.
I didn't, it's like, no, that's fun. Let's, just have a good time.
But what annoys me is if somebody makes a mistake and does that, damn face, that one, like,
Yeah.
I just made a mistake. It's like that, to me, the laughing thing is more of an inside joke. And I think most of the time the audience, like, what are they laughing at? Is that somebody's lyrical thing? Did somebody do something funny? They don't know. But when you make that face, that face, it's quite obvious. Okay, you made a mistake and you're disappointed, you're mad, you're upset. I don't like it when guys do that on stage.
Yeah, never let people know that you made a mistake, because 95% of the audience won't know that you made a mistake. But now you're pointing something else out.
Yeah.
And now they're looking and saying, oh, what happened there?
Yeah.
I mean, why is he?
Why is he so disappointed?
Yeah. And, they could be thinking it could be something completely different than what they're thinking. Maybe he's, he or she is shaking their head.
Yeah.
Or making some type of, whatever gesture screwed up, and someone could be talking at the time or doing a solo at the time.
Yeah.
And someone might think, are they thinking that person who's playing the solo now did something wrong?
Yeah.
Or they have no idea. So
I used to, a guitar player that played with me for years, his name was Robin McQuarrie.
Yeah.
And Robin was a phenomenal guitar player. And the band that he played in before me, there was another guy in the band. And when Robin would make mistakes, this guy would literally shake his head and roll his eyes. And Robin, after the show one night, said, hey, I noticed you were reacting when, I made hit a few clunkers there. I appreciate it if you didn't do that, because it's a visual thing. The audience sees, that you're rolling your eyes at me. And I guess he kept doing it. And this guy was a keyboard player. And so Robin just got fed up with it one night. And when this guy Robin hit a clunker, and this guy went and rolled his eyes like this. Robin went over to his keyboard, took the headstock of his guitar, and did one of those glissanos down the keys and snapped about 6 keys off right off the keyboard. Just messed this keyboard up. And he never did it again.
Yeah. That's the worst, though, when someone's rolling their eyes at
something
you did.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
just like,
there's no one that's that good.
No, there's nobody that good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
I remember seeing Queen when I was like 12 or 13 years old at Maple Leaf Gardens. And Brian May steps up to the front of the stage to play a solo. Can't remember what song it was on. But first note, he steps up and it's this grand moment where now, bum, 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 and Brian May is going to play. And he, first note, like at least 2 frets off, like way off. And he automatically throws his hand over his mouth in one of those kind of moments. Like he realized that was a clunker.
Yeah.
And he didn't try to cover it or anything. He owned it, and the audience went crazy. Now, he went on, obviously, to play the solo flawlessly, but that moment of, recognizing, okay, I screwed up, I made a mistake, and guess what? I own it, was huge.
Yeah.
It endeared him to the audience. It's one of the moments that I remember from that show.
Yeah, because that stays with you.
That's 1977. That's a long time ago.
So let's go back to the first album.
Yeah.
So you got a development deal with Sony.
Yeah.
The first album got done for $10,000, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And like I said, we literally recorded all the bed tracks. I remember this was my first experience with Nashville session players.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. I remember just being in awe. They'd be like, okay, play your song. And I'd grab my guitar and I'd be like, okay. And I'd play the song, and they all got little pieces of paper and they're all scratching down these numbers. I'm like, what the? I had no idea what the number system was. I had no idea what they were doing. And they sort of, I finished the song and they go, all right, let's go. And they go out onto the floor, they get on their instruments, and within 3 minutes, we're rolling a take of this song, and they're playing stuff that just blew my mind. That was, for me, so exciting. And we recorded that entire album the beds were in 4 days. I did my vocals in 3 days, and then they mixed in 3 days. So it was 10 days.
Yeah.
That whole album was done.
That doesn't happen very much anymore.
I don't think so.
I think, well, it depends. I think some people, if they're going to take 2 years to do it, they're going to take 2 years to do it.
I guess.
And some people like that process where it's, they just go and, just redo, and, it's like building a house. But I like getting in there and getting it done.
I think there's a huge benefit, especially when you're working with great musicians like that, to being able to keep one of those first takes, because they're spontaneous, they're full of energy. And these guys know too, when they've, made a mistake, they can just punch in and fix. These guys are masters at it. I mean, it's crazy, at the end of a take to be like, okay, I think that's the take. And then the bass player would go, punch me in, at the end, bar 3,
second
beat
verse,
2.
yeah,
Yeah,
they know exactly where
they know
it was.
exactly where they made a little mistake. So the punch-ins would be done literally within 5 minutes, and we would have. And I think there's something about that. I remember talking with I worked with this engineer, Ron Snake Reynolds, who worked. Well, he actually turned down one of Shania's records, working on it, because he knew that Mutt was one of these guys that just loves to.
Yeah.
His process is very different. It works for him.
Yeah.
But I guess a lot of the session players, Ron knew these guys, and he said some of these guys were like ready to kill themselves after one session, because they would finish a 3-hour session and they wouldn't even finish getting through the first verse of the song.
Yeah.
And like, you know what it's like, a 3-hour session, we should be able to cut 3 songs easily, full songs in that amount of time.
Yeah, but still a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys will take, and they'll take multiple takes.
Yeah.
And then they'll take bits and pieces of each multiple take and assemble a song. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's not, I can't get my head, it doesn't get me excited about anything.
No.
I cut an album. It was just a quick album, cover songs, about a month ago. Maybe no, a couple months ago. And said, okay, it's going to be a good solid 2 days. It's 14 songs, even though they're, just cover songs.
Yeah.
They're going to take some time. And I got the good guys in. John Diamond was on the session and all those guys. Chappie was playing. And it was like 8 o'clock the first night, 14th song done.
Yeah.
And we didn't get rolling till like noon.
Yeah.
It was like 8 hours, 14 songs.
14
Bam!
songs.
And it sounds really good.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, we weren't making a hit album, but man, it sounded really solid, and it was able to bang it out. And that's, there's something that comes from those first few takes, especially vocal. I mean,
yeah,
we've worked together in the studio a lot.
Yeah.
And I even know with you, when you get to the vocal, I want to make sure, and it's a big deal that every time someone goes to that microphone, even if you're going to do a test run, let's roll the song and see, you better make sure that record button's hit.
Yep.
Because that first take
might be the magic.
Yeah. And it, most of the time is, I find, especially doing vocals, if you're half hour in and 45 minutes in and still working on the first song, maybe an hour in, you might as well pack it up and
for the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And go home or go to something else for a while, or take a break, walk around and get away from it and come back. But usually, unless there's some trouble spots and there's some learning to do, those first, 2 or 3 takes are the ones.
I think they're the magic. And I think, too, a lot of times, I mean, like, that's how the Beatles made records. That's how everybody made records back then, because they didn't have the luxury of just continually doing overdubs and limitless number of tracks. So, I mean, it was all about the song, and the performance was like a unit. It was like one thing. And I think it shows. I listen to some of my favorite songs, and yeah, the take isn't perfect, but the character behind it is what drives the song. And if you just, continue in the studio to go over and over and do a new take and a new take and a new take, it sucks the life out of the song eventually.
And it's funny, and we've all done that at certain times.
Yep.
And you come back to the song 2 years from then, you don't hear any of those things you were listening to at the time. Nope. Like it doesn't make an impact to you at all. So what was I thinking about that song? Because you get so in tuned, listen to every single tiny little thing, getting everything perfect, and then there's something still bugging you, whatever, afterwards. But you come back to after a while. If it's good, it's you don't remember any of those things. Even a mix, you can be mixing all day long. You come back the next day and you play it once, like, that's fine. What was I thinking about yesterday?
Yeah.
What was on my mind?
Or if you obsess, and I remember Ron Reynolds told me this too, because he was a fast mixer. He would mix a song like we'd mix. He'd dial up a mix in a couple hours. We'd listen to it. We'd make a few little tweaks, and boom, it's done. And he always would tell me his this was a great line: a mix is never finished; it's just abandoned.
Yeah,
because he said, there's nobody in this industry. He says, you're going up there to accept your Grammy Award for, Song of the Year. And it's be like, you want to say, thank you. If I could just do the vocal one more time.
Yeah, but there are people out there like that.
Oh, and I was like that. I always would, finish a vocal take, and then I would come back and listen to it, and I'd be like, oh, I think I can do that better. And they'd be like, no, it's great. It's fabulous. It's perfect. But it wasn't technically perfect. And I think that's what I kind of got caught up in sometimes, was that the performance wasn't technically perfect, but it was what the song needed.
Yeah. I think producing vocal sessions is probably the hardest part of doing an album, just getting it right. But for me, 90% of it is the attitude of the person when they come in the studio.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. I was working on this album, and the artist, we're just working on, coming in every few days and trying to spend a couple hours doing some vocals. And this artist was kind of going through some stuff.
Yep.
And, they would show up and say, how you doing? Oh, I had this fight with my boyfriend. I said, all right, see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Because there's no sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Send them home.
Yep.
I was like, no, this, I'm not putting you through this.
No.
Unless it's a song that I really need to pull something
Right.
really emotional from.
Right.
And I've done that where, I've taken an artist who's, learning to find that spot,
Yeah.
and I know you can go there instantly. It's an instinct you get where you can, if you need to find that special spot, you know where to go, right?
Yep.
If you need to get something with feeling,
Yep.
you need to pour out, you have to take yourself somewhere.
Yep.
And it's usually somewhere tragic in your life or
Yeah.
somebody
sometimes
that,
somewhere very dark.
yeah.
Yep.
And I've had artists where I've worked, thinking of one particular, and I said, okay, tell me about the saddest day of your life.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? No, let's talk about it. I want to know. And it was like a grandparent passing away, and it went on, and we talked about it for like an hour. And then we just kind of finished the conversation, just kind of ended, and we're like, all right, let's sing.
Go sing.
And it was magical, the
Yep.
first take. And
Yep.
second take, no, it was that first take, because then second take went back to thinking about it again. Third
Yep.
take went back to thinking about it. But that first take was great.
Well, I remember I took voice lessons from Ed Johnson. He was a famous, I don't know if he's actually even still alive or not, but he was a famous vocal coach, and he coached, you name it in Canadian music, he's coached them. And I got to take lessons from him for years. And I remember him telling me that although he was teaching me technical, he told me, listen, singing is 85% mental and 15% physical.
Yeah.
So he was using it to explain why if you think you're not going to be able to hit this note, you're not, because it's 85% mental. That also has so much to do with the emotion, and because it's 85% mental. And if you're not in the right mental space for that particular song, you won't sell it. That's a huge part of a song. A good vocal performance is basically a good acting performance. Yeah. And it's selling that song. It's not just singing words and notes and technically hitting them. And that's why so many singers, and myself included, close their eyes, is because sometimes you have to do that to get into that space that you need to be at mentally to perform that song.
Yeah, so you just, like I said, you have to go somewhere.
You have to.
And you could be in front of 100,000 people.
Yeah.
If you need to take yourself there,
Yep.
you have to shout out 100,000 people in your brain.
Yep.
And just go there.
Yep. Yeah, it's a huge part of it, and I think a lot of times too, and I think that's the reason why when you see actors, famous actors, sing, and ones that can sing, you go, wow, they're really good. And it's because they understand, and they may not be technically good, but they can sell a song. And it's the reason is because they know that singing is acting. It's getting into a role and performing that role for those 3.5, 4 minutes or whatever it might be. And you have to be there. You have to believe it. You have to feel those lyrics, and you have to believe them. It's a huge part of a legitimate and sincere performance.
That's for me. That's working with you over the years. Your biggest skill. I always tell everybody, it's like, yeah, Witter, when he comes in the studio, he can just step up and he can nail it.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty well. I've never had to think that, oh, let's take a break, or let's go back to this song, let's work on this. It's always bam. You're able to take yourself to wherever you have to go to get the job done. But it's tough for a lot of people to be able to do that.
Well, and I think too, a lot of people in the studio worry about pitch and things like that.
Yeah.
And I never ever worried about pitch because I didn't feel like it was as important as as people think it should be. Like, listen to Adele, her actual recordings, like some of her notes are horrendously pitchy.
Yeah.
But you cannot say for a second that the performance is not stellar because it's just full of character and emotion. And I think that's the key thing. When you step up to the mic to sing a song, you definitely can't focus on pitch, because if you're focusing on pitch, you're going to miss the whole point.
And now you can fix it.
And you can fix it. Exactly.
I mean, back in the day, probably the big thing about growing up in a time where there was an auto-tune is that you learned to sing in tune at the beginning. And then now you can actually think about other things and not worry about it. But you've already tuned that part in, so you're already going to be darn close.
Yeah.
So, same thing. I like to get, I've gone through so many different ways of figuring out how to get a good vocal. And now for me, it's just like, I want 2 or 3 solid emotional performances, whether it's up, down, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then I know if I need to take something, a line or a word from somewhere, because nowadays I don't like punching in vocals. Let's grab.
I've never been a fan of that, but
I used to do that back in the day on 2-inch, and
Yep.
okay, we need to get and this sentence in the second line of the whatever, and you're punching in single words.
Yeah.
And you get really good at just bam bam,
Yeah.
you're in and out. But you can't get single words or even a line in a verse. Let's punch this in. You've lost your momentum.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I can hear it. I can hear vocals that it's like, oh, that was punched.
Oh yeah, I can
And
hear
that's
it.
a totally different day, or that's a different,
It's a different. Well,
that was 45 minutes later or whatever it was.
Yep. It's funny how your mind gets tuned to that, because there's a Sheryl Crow record that I hear a very, very obvious punch. This is like, an album that probably costs, huge amount of money, great producer, great engineers. But you can hear the punch. You can hear it, and it's the character of the vocal performance is different. Everything about it is different. But I've played that for people. Can you believe this? Listen to this. This slid by. They got by, and they're like, "What are you talking about? I don't hear it." I guess your ear gets kind of trained for that.
Yeah, you get tuned in and hearing those little changes, slight changes, because that's what you're trying to. You want to match something up. You don't want something to stand out. You get so used to listening to that, and then you realize afterwards, I was like, "Well, it's not that big of a deal."
Exactly.
But,
Not at all.
So your first album, what were some of the songs on? That's that when you started to get some songs on the radio?
Yeah, so the first song on the radio was Everything and More.
Yeah.
That was the first one off that album. That album also had Stolen Moments, Sweet Sweet Poison, Distant Drum.
So those are big songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had 5 top 10 hits off that.
It's interesting. I always say that first 1 or 2 songs that get on the radio is always those songs that everyone's going to remember.
Absolutely.
Like if you go back, probably if you think someone mentions Jim Witter, probably the first thing they're going to mention or think about is Stolen Moments.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is Stolen Moments almost didn't make it on the record. And I remember, actually, when we tracked Stolen Moments, it was a full band performance. So it was like, Stolen Moments. And there was like train beat behind it.
Yeah.
And there was, pedal steel, and there was piano, and there was bass, and there was electric guitar and acoustic guitar. And when we started mixing that album, they did a mix of Stolen Moments with the full band. And then when it was done, we had some time left in the studio, and I turned to the producer, Johnny. I said, "Hey, can we just try something? I just want to hear what this would sound like." He's like, "What?" I go, can you just mute everything but the acoustic guitars and the vocals on Stolen Moments? I want to hear what it sounds like. And he did. And so they played it back, and he's like, oh, I kind of get what you're going at here, but it was missing something. So there was a DX7 in
Love those.
Yeah, just like lying up against the wall like that keyboard over there is. And I said, can you fire up the DX7 and just put like a little pad on there, and I'll play it. And so I just played like this little pad behind there, and then it was like, okay, now, yeah, I hear where this is going. And then they called mandolin player, came in and threw in the mandolin part, and that was it. And then and then luckily Johnny was like, he agreed with me. He says, yeah, this is the mix. So we presented it to the record company, and I remember they went through all the songs, and they said, well, we like them all, but Stolen Moments it's okay. It's just a filler song. And it almost didn't make it on the record.
Wow.
They literally didn't want to put it on the record. I said, it's personal. It's a really personal song for me. I wrote it for my boy. Can you just please put it on there? And they said, okay, we'll put it on there. And then it was actually the people at radio that were like, once they got the album, they said, hey, can we play this song? Because and so that organically became a single. It was never really supposed to become a single. And then the video for that song was shot when we were in the middle of shooting Distant Drum.
Oh, yeah.
And we were shooting Distant Drum up in Collingwood. And, when they shoot videos, they like to shoot them in the early morning or at dusk. Like middle of the day is not good for outdoor shooting because the sun's right overhead. There's no shadows. It's really bland looking. So it was that sort of hour, like a couple hours. There was like noon to like 3, where they was like, no, we're not going to do any shooting. Everybody take a break. And we were sitting around at my parents' cabin, and the video director said, hey, isn't your next single going to be Stolen Moments? Because we'd been talking about that. And I said, yeah, radio picked this song, and they think it should be the next single. He goes, well, why don't we shoot the video for it right now? So they set up a little track there, and I sat on the front porch of my parents' house in the woods there, and I played along, and they filmed that, and then they did a bunch of B-roll, and that became the video. And that year that won video of the year at the Canadian Country Music Awards at CCMAs. And I remember it beat videos that cost like $100,000, and we put the final number on that one at just below $5,000 to make that video for that song.
That's great.
So again, it just goes to show you that for me, it's all about producing something that means something to you, and people will recognize that, and people will, that's the song that, if anybody remembers anything from that record, that's the song.
So that's when you started touring, obviously, as well?
Yeah. Like crazy to promote that record.
So what was touring like then?
Well, it was a lot different than it is now for me. First of all, it was like a lot of afternoon spots and a lot of hey, we got a night off in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and nights off when you're a starting artist kill you because you got to pay for hotel rooms for you and your band. You got to pay per diems. Everybody's got to eat, So we never had a night off, even if it was playing at a bar for $250. I remember playing for $250 and rooms.
Yeah.
So we got hotel rooms. Well, that was great because that covered that cost. And then, so you'd play that bar that day. And then the next day you might be opening for Trisha Yearwood at a massive festival with 30,000 people. And then the next day again, you might be playing another club somewhere for 50 people for the door plus food, like
They paid the rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's what touring was like in those days. And that was great because I was young and I didn't mind going out literally for 3 months and playing like almost virtually every single night. So touring was rough. And I mean, I remember we would literally finish a show and get in the van. We had a van pulling a trailer. We'd get in the van and we'd drive all night long just to get to the Calgary Stampede pancake breakfast the next day to play that. We'd roll out of the van with our, just like maybe you got 40 minutes of sleep and your eyes are red and your hair's a mess and you smell and get up on stage. You've been there. You've done those tours.
Yeah, you know what? It makes for a great band. I mean, you get good because you're playing all the time. Today, which is tough, everything's so scattered.
Yes.
Everyone hops on the plane. Everyone's band is probably one guy's in this city, another guy's on the other side of the country, and everyone just kind of joins up and you play a gig and then we play again. We'll see you in a couple of weeks or next weekend, or maybe if you're lucky you get a gig the next night.
Yep.
And it'll be all good, but man, you don't get tight.
No, and the other thing we were doing, because we were playing every night and we had a front of house guy traveling with us by the name of Rich Hagan. I think you know Rich.
Yep.
And Rich was he would make board tapes every single show. And we'd get in the van and we'd literally listen to the board tape because that's how you know what the show really sounded like.
Yeah.
Parts, right? And you'd listen and everybody cared. Everybody'd be like, oh, wow, like that part I'm playing there is not really working. So they would adjust it for the next night. Oh, yeah, that band, by the time we were done that first tour, man, we were tight. But we had some great players. I mean, we had Ed Pee Wee Charles playing steel with us. My drummer at the time was Jimmy Scotland. Jimmy was a great drummer. Jimmy was so solid. And Jay Reel was on the drums too for a number of those tours. And this guy, Robin McQuarrie, was my guitar player back then. Man, that guy
Robin's great.
Phenomenal player.
We could do a podcast just on Robin stories.
Oh, Robin McQuarrie stories. Shaker stories.
Yep.
If Shaker's listening to this, geez, I won't share them because they're absolutely unbelievable. I tell complete strangers, people that don't have a clue who this guy is, I tell them the story.
The Audubon story.
The Audubon story. And I have literally had guys pee their pants. They're laughing so hard at this story and they can't believe it's true. And it's,
What's that? You can tell that story about when what he did with that B3 microphone.
Oh, that was.
I think that's the
I
funniest.
can't remember.
That's a sound guy a lot. I think that's the funniest thing.
This is a great, not kind of revenge. I guess it was a little bit of revenge, but we were again. This was one of those pickup gigs where we were playing some dance somewhere, but we were actually the feature band. We were to play an hour set, and then there was a dance band coming on after us.
Yeah.
And the dance band, I can't remember who they were, but these guys had serious attitude. Like they thought they were great because they were closing the show, but it wasn't really. They were just the dance band. They were for after the show. We were the show. Anyways, didn't matter. I didn't care. But they were giving attitude to Robin, the guitar player. And so we're done our show, we're packing up, and these guys are getting on stage, and we're leaving now. We don't have to stay, so we're leaving. And we're walking down the hallway to go out of the venue, and the keyboard player had a B3 hooked up to a Leslie speaker cabinet, but because there was no room on stage, he had the cabinet in the back hall, and
all mic'd up.
And all mic'd up with a 57. It was a 57. On the Leslie, and we're just walking down the hallway, just nonchalantly, just walking down the hallway, leaving, and without even missing a beat, Robin just reaches down, grabs the 57, lifts it up to his mouth, and goes, "Oh!" like this, and all you can hear is the sound in the dance hall. All you can hear is the play like Boot Scoot and Boogie, and all you can hear is this woo, just screaming through the hall. And then he puts the mic back down just keeps walking. Doesn't even. It was, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he did it, but he did.
I miss that guy.
So do I.
Yeah. So,
and I've got stories about him that I would never tell.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Because he was an intense guy. He liked to work. Really hard worker. Really hard worker. But he played really hard too, and he had lots of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Great guy. So that album happened, and you had a bunch of great songs on that. Then what was the next step after that?
So this next step from that was, so we were on a smaller independent label, FRE, but it was distributed by EMI. And EMI was working with Curb Records in Nashville, and they basically said to Curb, you should have a listen to this guy, Jim Witter. His record did well up here in Canada, and I think he might be a good fit for Curb. And so I remember Derek Ross and I, Derek was with the record label, he was also managing me. At the same time, we drove down, we had a meeting with Mike Curb, and we got there, and we just sat in his office, and we chatted for like 2-3 hours. And it was weird because we really just talked about the music industry and what Curb was doing, and we kind of left the meeting, and I kind of turned to Derek and I said, what happened? Like, did we talk about a record deal or anything? He's like, yeah, it was kind of weird. It was sort of one of those meetings where nothing was really like, welcome to Curb Records.
Yeah.
You know, there was nothing. It was just like, we just chatted. For super nice guy. I really like Mike Curb. And then it was like Monday, he gets a call, and Mike goes, so when do you guys want to start? And Derek's like, start? Yeah, start working on Jim's record. Like, and then that's when we realized, we got to deal with Curb Records. So, I mean, it was a number of years with Curb, and it was great. And at the same time, it was a dark time in my career because I was used to things being done so quickly at Derek's label, FRE. It was a smaller independent label, and we said, let's make a record. Like 2 weeks later, we had a record done, and let's do this, and it was done because they didn't really have the resources, the money, or the time to really fudge around a lot. And we discovered quickly what it's like to be with a major label, and it took months and months for them to just decide who was going to produce my record. And then they put me with this guy, Nelson Larkin, who's a legendary producer. He produced B.J. Thomas and just tons of big stuff. And Nelson was a great guy. I loved him, but things were really slow moving. It was, the song picking process, and it took like literally 6 months, maybe even a year, to get like 3 or 4 tracks done with Nelson.
Wow.
And finished tracks. And it was very frustrating for me. And then we took those 4 tracks to Mike Curb, and he listened to them, and he just kind of went, yeah, it's not really the direction I kind of envisioned for you. I think maybe I want to try a different producer on you. And I'm going, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because we're losing momentum. We've already been through now 2 CCMA awards in Canada, no new material from me, and then Chuck Howard joined the team, and Chuck Howard, fabulous producer, great guy, love him. But again, things were moving really, 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 really slow. And that was a really sort of dark time in my life, because I was devoting every bit of energy and time, anything that I had towards this project. And meanwhile, back home, my wife, Rebecca, we're raising a family. She's working as a nurse. She's basically supporting the family at this point because I'm not doing any gigs. Other than, SOCAN money coming in, that's the only money coming in, and it's not a lot, and not enough to raise a family, that's for sure. And then we sat on Chuck. We finally made a full record, and that was delivered to Curb, and then Curb kind of gave it to the radio people, and they kind of went, not really what we want for the market down here. So at this point, then we say, okay, well, can we at least please just release it in Canada? And that's when that album was All My Life. And that was, with Steve Warner was on that record. And Steve and I wrote a bunch of songs on that one together. And I did some covers and we did some videos. And it did pretty well in Canada. It didn't have the same success as the first album. And I really feel like it was because we just had lost so much momentum, because momentum is so key in this industry. And that's why it's really hard if you go away as an artist for 5 years and show up again.
It's like the American Idol effect.
Exactly.
You're on TV, and then if you don't get that single out right away and it doesn't do well, or whatever you're doing, if you don't jump on it, then, the worst thing for those guys, they think it's great, but they go on tour right away, and it's probably the worst thing for them, because they're all of a sudden it's like, it's like all those, no time for meetings, no time to start, knocking on doors and, hey, I was third on the Idol, and you finish 4 months, 5 months later, they finish a tour, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah, what do we do now?
I mean, when you disappear from radio, and you've built relationships with these people, you can't go away for 5 years.
And even back then, because there wasn't Facebook, or there's no way to, keep yourself connected with your audience.
Nope.
You just they were just waiting for the next song.
Yep. And so eventually they just kind of went, oh, I guess he's done, and that's that. They were still playing the old stuff, and I mean, they still do now. Like, I still get airplay on Stolen Moments, for crying out loud, but not on the same kind of rotation.
Yeah. So,
you need to be out there with fresh new material. And so that was a frustrating time for us. So then we got to a point where Mike Curb pulled me in and said, hey, I noticed a lot of your music has a really strong inspirational message. Have you ever thought of making a contemporary Christian album? And I basically said, well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't really know a lot about that industry, but here's what I feel like I can make a record like this. And we made it here with you.
Yeah.
And we made the Forgiveness album. And then Curb ended up kind of sitting on that. They wanted me to sort of go out on the road myself and promote it. And so I did a radio tour down there in the US. And
I remember you doing that.
Yeah, it was really hard because I really didn't have the support from the label that I really felt like I needed. And they kind of, and then I found out, Curb Records at the time was sort of one of these labels that would sign a ton of artists and then just kind of throw them all out there, and then whatever stuck, great, and everything else, that's okay. Because, I mean, that was in the days when, Tim McGraw, his album would finance all of ours.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore.
No.
Labels don't do that anymore.
You get a couple singles, and good luck.
Good luck. Good luck is exactly right.
So how long, I know we did that album, and you kind of worked that for a while, but that didn't.
Nope, that never really took off, and at that point, country radio, I feel like it was just it was done for me. There, and I kind of, all I wanted to do at that point was get off my deal with Curb, but they wouldn't release me.
Yeah.
And
so how many year deal?
I was with Curb for 8 years before they finally said, "Go ahead, you can leave now."
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, we're done with you. And at that point, I'd already started the Piano Man thing, and that was ramping up, and I kind of really just got away from doing my own music. It was a weird transition, but at the same time, I was ready for it. Like I was ready to, say goodbye to that. Not say goodbye to it, just say, okay, time to put that on that part of my career on the back burner. And the face of the industry was changing too a lot, and there was a lot going on. I remember there was so much going on with Napster and all that time, and people weren't selling records the way they did when I first. I mean, like for me to start with my first independent album and sell 50,000 copies in Canada, that was pretty significant.
Yeah, and you can make some money with that.
Yeah.
But not now.
No, absolutely not. And nobody was selling records at one point there. And that's kind of when I got into the whole, well, I still want to play, I still want to perform, and that's when it kind of came up with the idea for this. And I was getting older, I was getting nostalgic for the music of my youth, and it was like, maybe I can come up with a show idea that people will come see the show. It won't be my own music, but it will be me relating this music and stories of my youth. And the Piano Man thing took off, and it was the great thing about that is that not only was I able to perform in Canada, places where people knew who I was, but I was able to get a U.S. agent and start touring in the U.S. and play theaters. The great thing is we exclusively played our show in theaters. We didn't play bars. We didn't play clubs.
You played that one in Kingston.
You
remember that place?
Right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great
forget that was a
story. It was an opening of a new bar / restaurant / music venue.
I still remember that PA system. They had I don't remember what it was, but they had to set up for dance music or whatever music.
Totally.
So we set up, patched in, and they had it protected so much. So when your band would play, it would clamp down
the compressors. Yeah. There was no way to bypass
until
them.
You guys would stop playing. Then everything would start opening up and start feedback. Because now the PA opened up because there's no volume now. It's like a big compressor over the PA. That was a night. So and we had to do 2 nights, right?
We had to do 2 nights there. Now, you remember the technical end of it. I remember the fact that we were called like on a Wednesday. And I remember it was, this guy is in need of a band to play Friday and Saturday night this weekend. And we weren't doing anything. And I said, well, yeah, but we're not really a dance band. Like we're a band. We can play. The show that we've got together right now is Billy and Elton. We can play a bunch of Billy and Elton tunes and maybe some other typical
cover stuff,
standard covers, old time rock and roll and all that kind of thing. We can do some of that, but that's it. Oh no, it's exactly what he wants. And I remember we played I also remember the guy who introduced me was from the radio station there, and he was like, "Hey Jim, it's my buddy," and he pretended like him and I went back a long way. And I remember when he introduced me that night, and by the way, there was like 10 people there.
Yeah.
Because the advertising for this place was atrocious. Like he hadn't done any advertising at all. Nobody knew this place was even there. And the DJ gets out on stage and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited to invite this Canadian singer-songwriter to our stage here to open up this beautiful new venue. And this guy and I, we go back years. We're good friends, and we've done so many shows together. Please welcome." What's your name? What's your name again?
Wow.
And I
don't remember that.
I started laughing, and he goes, "No, I'm serious, man. I'm blanking on your name right now." So anyways, that was the beginning of a weekend in hell. Because I remember when we got there the second night, the club owner was really upset because he had nobody there.
Yeah.
And they came up and they said, yeah, the club owner doesn't want you to play any ballads tonight.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
He just wants dance music. And it's like, wait a second. It's not a dance club. It's a supper club.
Yeah.
It's a place where you come to get dinner. It's not a dance club. And there's 15 people here. Are you for real? Oh, yeah. And he just wants all up-tempo dance songs. So I remember Gord Stevenson was playing drums.
Wow. Yeah.
And I said to Gord, give me a dance beat. And he's, it's a little bit funny. We did every song. We did every song to that beat. And we were killing ourselves laughing. We had a blast that night. I'll never forget that. We had so much fun. And then I remember we got paid, which was remarkable. We got paid at the end of the night in cash. And we went back to the hotel and we had a few drinks. And then the next day I get a call from the agent. And she says, yeah, the club owner really wasn't happy with the performance on the weekend. And I'm like, what wasn't he happy about? The fact that there were only 15 people there? No, he didn't think the band was very good. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you. We were actually really great, but we weren't suitable for what he wanted. He wanted some sort of dance band, and that's not us. And I told you that from the beginning. She goes, yeah, he was wondering if you can get some of the money back.
Wow.
And I said, it does not work that way.
No.
I'm the one that's supposed to come to you saying, hey, I need my money. Give me my money. So I just very politely told him what he could go and do.
That's the agent's fault. Not
100%.
That's up to the agent to say, in theory, the agent didn't pick the right actor, didn't follow up, or just
Nobody
was looking for
picked
something.
anything correctly. No. Apparently that place too lasted like a couple of months and then went out of business. But the good news is things really went uphill from there.
I know, it's funny, you get a gig like that and you can go, every time I go to Kingston, and I play Kingston 2-3 times a year now, and every time I go there, I think of that gig.
So do I.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's just,
I think of that gig quite frequently when maybe I'm having a bit of a bad day, or a gig, something stupid and trivial like, oh, I don't have a stereo mix at my piano tonight. I have to deal with one monitor. I think back to that gig and everything's cool. Everything's good.
Yeah, it's the success of the Piano Man's been fab, especially in the U.S. And
it's been crazy.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's a testament to the fact that the music of the 70s and nostalgia from the 70s is not going anywhere. I mean, it's still as hot now as it ever was.
No, I know booking our theater here. Gosh, we started basically the theater here probably the same time you started the Piano Man, because it's our 18th season here.
Yep.
So I look back at what we used to book.
Yep.
All the old country stuff used to sell like crazy. Now you have to, where you do a majority of the shows, older classic country for that type of crowd.
Yep.
Now it's all, the Piano Man stuff, Frankie Valli, all that kind of newer, everything's, you have to bring your music up with
the audience.
So if it's 20 years later, then you're doing music that's 20 years older.
Exactly. And we forget that. And when I was reminded of that fact was when my mom was in the long-term care facility that she was in for a few years. And they found out, oh, your son is a musician. And they said, would you consider coming in and entertaining the folks here? And I said, absolutely. As long as my mom's here, I would love to come and do a show. And I'm thinking they want me to come in and do all the crooners. I said to her, oh, yeah, I know. I can do Frank Sinatra, and I can do, all the old crooner tunes and Glenn Miller and, all those. She, oh, no, we don't want that. We have enough people to do that. we need somebody who can do maybe music like Billy Joel and Elton John. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, now I get it. Because when those songs were hits, the people that are in this facility now were in their 30s or 40. Yeah. And now here we are 40 years later. And these people, this is now becoming old timers music.
It is. It's like now this is the old stuff.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of the middle ground before, but now it's, I know for the Walters Sound this year, we redid our whole show, and where we used to do a lot of classic country stuff, Patsy Cline and you know, all that stuff. I bumped everything up to the 90s.
Yeah.
80s and 90s. So Alabama, Jody Messina,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
I Hope You Dance.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh.
And you think you're playing new music, but no, that's 30 years old now.
30 years old now.
So
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And the people, you're thinking, oh gosh, like the first couple of shows, I'm thinking, you know, the people may not like us doing, quote, newer music, right? The first show in, and you're doing like an Alabama song, and people are singing and a Jody Messina song, and people know all the words, and it's like, wow, okay, I'm just your judgment gets off because you still think of when you were younger, right? Because what's that thing they say that you really don't, once you hit your early 30s, you don't really listen to any newer music, or retain any newer music at that point. That's
you always go back.
You go back. That's the music that stays with you for the rest of your life, up
absolutely.
from a teenager up to your early 30s.
Yep.
And then you forget that all these people now are older.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And the Piano Man shows, it's just perfect. And then you spun off. How many? There's 5 shows now. Is it?
Yeah, it's like the
shows?
Piano Man. There's 2 Piano Man shows now. So, and then we have the Barry Manilow show, and then we've kind of morphed a few of those together, and sort of. So we do a Billy, Elton, and Barry Manilow show all together, and then we have the Simon and Garfunkel show, and we have a Beatles show, and we have like a coffee house kind of show, which is all like folk artists from the 70s. And I mean, it's all about nostalgia. It's all about music from the real decade that I find that people really react to is the 70s. 60s for sure too as well, but the 70s and even some 80s.
Yeah, it gets a little weirder when you get in the mid 80s up for.
Well, sure it does.
Yeah, but it's still good. I mean, it's interesting seeing, like I said, that crowd. That I'm always amazed if I'm on a tour with, a show that's in the era of your show.
Yeah,
I tour this Frankie Valli show all the time, and you do some newer stuff in there. You're thinking every night it goes like, wow, this crowd's old, and I didn't. Yeah. You keep forgetting. You think that it's going to be younger people, but then he's like, no, this is the crowd that love this music, right? Yep. And even today, you take a look, it wasn't a young crowd.
Nope.
But man, people knew all those songs.
All of them.
Yeah.
I had a woman come up to me after a show a little while back, and she said, "This is my mom. My mom," and she was, and some mom says, "Oh, that brought back so many memories. I love Elton John and Billy Joel," and she was like specifically referencing certain songs, from the show. So she knew what she was talking about. And I said, "Do you mind me asking you, sweetie, how old are you?" And she said, "I'm glad you asked me. I'm 94.
Wow.
She was 94 years old, and she knew all of that material. She knew it all.
Yeah. Yeah, you forget that an older crowd can still rock it out. They may not be as jumping up on their feet, but they, I always think, when I grew up, you were at a concert that had older people. You're at a country concert, you're at a, you're at a Conway Twitty, or you're at some type of thing. And then you see the same people now. You just, in my brain, I associate them with an older country crowd.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that any of those people even like country music. They grew up on rock and roll. That's what they wanted to hear. It's great.
It's interesting because it's also a geographical, almost a regional thing that we find audiences all over the world just react differently, but it's to do with the way that they're brought up and taught how to react to a live show.
Yeah.
And I remember that was so evident our first time touring overseas and going to Holland.
Yeah.
And our first show, and this is, the music of Billy Joel and John. It's universal. Everybody knows this music. And I finished the first song, your song. And usually when people know in North America, when people know that song is over, they start to clap. And I do this little run up, at the end. And by the time I get up to the top of the keyboard playing that last little note, the audience is fully applauding and cheering. In Holland, what's going on here, man? There's not a noise coming from the audience.
Yeah.
I hit the last note. I take my hands off the keyboard. Nothing. I take my foot off the sustain pedal. Boom, music stops. And that's when they started clapping. And then we quickly discovered they've been taught, you wait until that song is completely done, and then you applaud.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about those audiences too is I would say, how's everybody doing tonight? Because they were all mostly English speaking.
Yeah.
And here when you say, how's everyone doing tonight? They go, woo!
Yeah.
And they answered in unison, fine.
That's great. Alrighty then.
Like, oh, wow. And then you're thinking, oh, man, I remember that first show in Holland thinking, I have not touched these people. They don't get this at all. They're not digging this at all. Finish the last song, get up, standing ovation. They're all on their feet standing, cheering. They come out, give you flowers. They, encore, blah, blah. It was really bizarre. So audiences are different all over for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But
even across Canada.
Oh,
just completely different.
Yeah.
When you're doing a cross Canada tour, it's like every night's, okay, now on my last tour, it's like all of a sudden we got to like Kelowna and the place was on fire.
Yeah.
Like it's just like literally, but it was people were going crazy and all of a sudden it's like, okay, what's the difference between here and there?
I remember that so clearly from the country days.
Yeah.
When I had songs playing on the radio and I would go play in Ontario, and then I would go out to Vancouver, start the tour, Vancouver, and audiences were really reserved there, kind of. And then you'd hit Alberta, and I remember my first big show in Alberta, and I literally thought the audience didn't know who I was when they introduced me. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jim Witter, and I'm standing off the side of the stage and I hear the audience response and I'm like, oh man, they think they're getting somebody else. Like they don't know, because they were absolutely like treating me like I was Garth Brooks.
Oh yeah.
Like they were just crazy screaming and after songs, and it really showed me that certain types of music and certain audiences in certain regions are just very, very different. So they're conditioned in Alberta. It's okay to show some enthusiasm and get all fired up by an artist. And then we'd keep coming east and we'd get back to Ontario. And I remember a few of the gigs in Ontario, the audiences were definitely a little more reserved. They were like, they kind of sit on their hands for the first couple of songs until they kind of went, oh, everybody else is clapping? Oh, okay. I can clap? Okay. All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah. They need that one person to get them going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, so you do a lot of American touring, obviously.
Yeah.
And so what's that been like now recently for border crossing and getting your visas and that? Has that changed a lot for you over the last few years?
Actually, since Trump came into presidency, we found it's easier to get P2s now, our work visas that used to, remember, there was a time there where it was like, just tough. It would take forever.
Yeah.
The paperwork would be bogged down. And if you didn't pay that, I like to call it they call it a premium processing fee. I call it the bribe.
Yeah.
Basically, incredible amount of money just to get the paperwork through. But ever since Trump came in, it seems the border crossing is a lot easier. Of course, I would never try to cross without the proper paperwork.
Yeah.
And they always say, even though you have been approved for a work permit in the United States, it does not mean you're going to get in. But we've never had an issue. In fact, one time we were going to play with the symphony in Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids Symphony. It was a big outdoor 2-show gig. It was a big show. And our work visa did not come in time, even though we had gone through everything, and we had the presenter go and talk to their member of Congress. And I mean, they went through everything they could possibly go through, every hoop they could possibly go through. I said, I'm not going to go and try to illegally cross the border. And they said, okay, well, here's what we want you to do. We just want you to go to the border and just tell them your story. Just tell them. Be honest with them. Say, I'm not trying to get across illegally, but here's the situation. What can you do? And so we went into the office, and the guy interviewed us and talked with us. And he said, okay, yeah. And he went on the computer and he saw it's all legit. Okay, yeah, I see. All right, yeah, I see what's going on here. Yeah, we'll let you cross. And I said, oh, fabulous, thank you. He goes, yeah, it's called a P2 waiver fee. And it's, I don't know, $800 each.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, it was so obviously something he was just making up.
Yeah.
Because he had the authority to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we have to do it. So yeah, it ended up costing me like $3,200 or something like that to get them to sign this little card. And here you go, boys. Way you go. Have fun. And then the next day, literally the next day, the AFM calls me and goes, your work permit's been approved. It's like, well, day late, but thanks.
Well, most people wouldn't, do that. I mean, it's important to, I've always learned that you make the gig, you get there and
you do whatever you can.
Yeah. I mean, there's also certain circumstances where, something happens, you can't, but you try to make the gig and make it work whatever way you can.
Yeah.
Because people, the people who bought the tickets and people coming, they don't care about anything that you're going through.
No.
They just know they bought a ticket and they want to come see the show. And, nobody wants to hear the story and nobody wants, so you just, that's just a story for us to tell on a podcast sometime.
Exactly.
You just get up there and you perform and pretend like nothing ever happened.
The ironic thing about the Grand Rapids Symphony show was that half the audience didn't make it to the show, and here's why. It was a free concert. No, it wasn't free. It was a concert in the park, at a ski resort in the summer.
Yeah.
An outdoor concert, and the road leading to it was literally 2 lanes, 1 lane going and 1 lane coming, and there's only one way to get there. And they've always done like pops shows, like nothing like a Billy Joel Elton John tribute show. And so they had no clue what kind of response they were going to get to this thing. And before we went on, I remember looking down the road that came into the ski resort saying, is this traffic normal? And they said, no, we're going to hold the show for a few minutes, but there's apparently 4 miles of cars trying to get in to this concert. And the last car literally got through the gate 5 songs into the second half of the show.
Jeez.
So there was a ton of people that missed, and that was the one where we had to pay all that money for the work permit. So it probably, I mean, it's ironic that happened, but yeah, we've found crossing the border, going into the U.S. is typically been quite easy.
Yeah, since even for me too, I haven't found anything that's been that bad at all. Just make sure And I always tell everybody, no matter what, just always tell the truth. And
Yes.
because that's all you need is one. And,
Oh, absolutely.
can mess you up. Don't take that chance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And even if you're going in, like I remember a few times going in to do showcases. So meaning, we're going to go perform. We're not getting paid.
Yeah.
But we're going to perform in front of maybe some agents. And then if they like us, then they'll bring us back and we'll get a work permit then. But you can't get a work permit when you're doing a showcase because there's no contract issued.
Yeah.
And the American Federation of Musicians isn't involved, blah, blah, blah. So all this kind of stuff. So I remember a few times sweating it out in the, not sweating it out, but basically the initial guard at the border saying, sorry, you're not going through. This sounds fishy to me, but I'll send you inside. You can talk with the officer inside. And it's like, okay. And we just go in, we tell them, and they do a little bit of checking, and they come back and they go, okay, it's legit. Go ahead. Away you go.
Yeah, I've done a few of those. I never had an issue because you just show up with a letter from the organization that you're doing a showcase for. And, it is nerve-wracking, though, because, you're out for a showcase and you want to make it. And
there's a chance you're not going to get there.
Yeah. But, I've never had an issue with that either, which has been really good.
And wow, I've never, to this day, had a flight not make it to a gig. I've had lots not make it home.
Yeah.
Which is crazy ironic. And, but I do.
You keep it tight, though.
We have once or twice. Were you on the gig when we were supposed to start at show was at 7:00 and we showed up at 7:30?
Yeah. Oh, I did one of those.
We got to the venue at 7:30. So I mean, we haven't even done load in, sound check, anything like that. Luckily, we used a ton of backline gear.
Yeah.
So we had very little to set up. And what they ended up doing, I mean, we were in constant communication with the presenter, and they're like, you got a full house here. We can't, cancel the show. I don't want you to cancel the show. Okay, so they got a sax player, and I can't remember this guy's name, but he was fabulous. He played saxophone to tracks, and he was like the sax man or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And they literally, what they did is at 7:00 when that show was supposed to start and we're not there, they closed the curtain, and he stood out in front of the curtain and put his tracks on, and he played for a half an hour. We showed up. They said, can you be ready in like 10 minutes? And we said, yep. And so they told the sax man, okay, you're done. And he got off the stage and they said, okay, the main show will start in 10 minutes, folks. And we went on and did the show, and nobody knew the difference.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that we hadn't been there. They just made it like, here's his opening act.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
I know we did one. I remember one flying, like we had 2 or 3 flights to get to somewhere in Florida. We landed in Jacksonville, something. Then we had like another 4-hour drive from there, and we got second leg of one of the flights got delayed and all that. And I still remember telling some tech guys this story. You get in, and we were like 30 minutes before the show time we got in, I think, and I'm going back, and the theater had just got a brand new PA system in. So brand new line array, brand new digital console. And the guy didn't know anything about anything. So hopefully, I know we were calling, can you get stuff patched or whatever. I still remember they had spent a fortune. I can't remember how much they said. There's a big money. They flew this line array way up high. Then they found that when they spent all this money, that no one could hear anything in the first 10 rows because they flew the PA way too high. It didn't position it right. So they brought the old PA system back out, which is just a floor stacked PA system on the stage. And that's what they were. So they're using the old system again to cover the front section of the theater, the front 10, 15 rows. So I remember turning up the PA, random music. And I turn up, this is my thing. I always turn left side and then listen to the right side, see what there's, because lots of times it's left side sounds completely different than the right side.
Right.
So pull the left side, and it's like, oh, well, kind of sounds like the whole PA still. Turn up the right side. I said, yeah, it kind of still sounds like it's not all coming just from the right. And so I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying, from the booth where I was, I couldn't even see the line array. It was so high.
Yeah.
All I could see is that there's something wrong with that PA. I don't know what's going on. Well, we've been having this for like the last 3 or 4 months now, whatever. So I figured out the line array was left and right, but the floor stack was switched. The left and right was switched.
Right.
So when I turned up the left side, it was the left side of the line array, but the right side of the floor stack.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, this is not right. And the guy's like, yeah, never really noticed that before. And that was, that was the first thing. Try to get in, it was just a cable at the back. You switch two around, all of a sudden the PA sounded like $1 million. And I was like, oh gosh.
I remember you weren't on this gig, but we were in Florida, I think Sanibel Island, and it was one of those things where we got in kind of late and we had to kind of do things quickly, and the front of house, the house guy there was running sound, and we're doing sound check, and I'm like, something doesn't, like, I'm on stage, but still something doesn't quite sound right. So I hop down and I have Ian and the other guys do a song. I said, Ian, sit at the piano and play something. And he sits at the piano and he's playing and he's singing, and his voice just sounds horrible. The PA is just fried. And I'm looking at the sound guy, and he's just standing there, and he's just kind of got his arms folded, and he's just kind of nodding his head. And I go, what's wrong? He goes, what? What do you mean? I go, the PA always sound like this? He goes, pretty much. And said, are you for real? Like, it sounded like everything was blown. So we went back and looked, and it ends up like the amps that he was using to run the front of house were completely fried.
Wow.
Fried. So we just swapped out a few things, and all of a sudden the PA comes to life, and it's nice and crystal clear. And the guy's like, huh, that sounds a little better. I'm like, a little? Like, we almost did a show where my voice would have sounded like that the whole show, just fried.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking, how many shows did you do in here with the PA like that before you even noticed?
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, it's somewhat better than it used to be, but going into theater after theater, it's just like
not entirely.
Do a lot of them. I know. It's there's not a lot of qualified technicians out there.
No.
Anyone that's decent is doing, a touring gig or something like that.
Yeah.
And but back in the day, I found there was a lot, there's a lot of good audio guys around, and go to different venues. Most of the time they were, they did other jobs. They had a PA company, and they come in. They would.
Yep.
Now you have dedicated people there, and some are good and some are bad. But the worst thing nowadays, are LDs, lighting. It's just, I have this.
Don't get me started on that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just the worst.
It's simple. I provide them with the simplest lighting cue sheet that you can possibly imagine. And I apologize to some of them and say, this is written for, Fred, who is a volunteer firefighter who got a call and they said, can you come down and run lights? And he's like, what are lights? Like, he had no clue. So I make it simple for him. And yet we still shake our head night after night. I'll go over this simple lighting cue sheet with these people and be like, I remember the funniest was after every song, I'd like a blackout. Seriously? Yeah, just a simple blackout. And then you can bring the lights back up for me for talking. You really? Yeah, it's not asking for anything unusual.
Yeah.
Okay, so we finished the first song, and the stage goes black, and he brings the house lights up 100%. And I'm like, what the heck is he doing? So I'm talking to the audience. I'm thinking, oh, maybe there's something wrong with the lights. So when we start the next song, the house lights come down, the stage lights come back up again. Finish that song. Stage lights down, house lights up 100%. So now I'm like, okay, something's wrong here. This guy has no clue
Something wrong with the master fader.
what he's doing. So while I'm playing the next song, old drummer Daryl runs out to the guy and goes, "What are you doing?" The guy didn't know what a blackout was. He thought a blackout meant bring the stage black and then but you got to be able to see, so let's bring all the house lights up 100%. And even the audience didn't know what was going on. Even the audience was like looking around like, why are the house lights back up here? Oh, I mean, lighting designer stories.
Yeah, there's way more of those than audio stories.
But I do have the best audio story, and I don't think I've shared it with you yet. And it was from our last tour.
Is it better than the pin drop one?
Oh, this is way better than Pin Drop Boy.
Every time I go up, I won't tell that story, but
Yeah.
I forget where that was.
I can tell you where it was.
It was
Manitowaj.
yes. Every time I travel up north, the exit for that.
Yep.
I think of that particular
At
gig.
the end,
Same
of
thing.
the,
It's like
at
going
the
to
end of
Kingston.
the highway. Yeah. I mean, he was a great guy, but
Yeah.
no clue. But this is a great story. So we arrive at the gig, and the PA's all set up, and we've got a dedicated monitor engineer on the side of the stage there. And so, and I like to do things the same way every time. So I tell the monitor guy, so we'll start with my voice. We'll get it in my wedge first. We'll dish it around to whoever wants it. And then we'll move on to my piano. This is how because I know every monitor guy is different. And he says, that's great. I said, okay. And I'd like to do front of house at the same time, because hearing what it's going to sound like out front there is going to affect how much I'm going to get in my monitors. Yeah. And I can see the front of house guy. He's at the board and he's got a set of headphones on. And I said, is that a problem? He goes, no, it's not a problem. Hang on a second. He gets down from the desk and he walks up to the sound booth, to the front of house guy, and he taps him on the shoulder, and the guy takes his headphones off. And he's talking to the front of house guy. He's about a foot away from him, and he goes, Dawn! The band would like to do front of house at the same time as monitors. He's screaming at this guy about a foot away from him.
Wow.
And we're all looking at each other like, what's going on here? And he comes back, I go, everything okay? Yeah, Don's he's a really good sound man, but he's 75% deaf.
Wow.
And I said, are you for real right now? And he's like, yeah, no, he's been the sound man here for 30 years, and over the years he's lost 75% of his hearing,
And 75% of the patrons.
but he can ring out a room like you wouldn't believe. So I'm like, okay, I'll take your word for it. Now, you can, as an artist, you can always you can tell what it sounds like out front.
Yeah.
And I could tell it was brutal. But we did the show, and I had friends there, and they're not audio people by any means.
Yeah.
But after the show, I said to them, how was the sound tonight? And he said, it was pretty harsh. It kind of hurt my ears to listen. And I'm thinking, yeah,
because he's lost all that.
he's
here.
lost everything in that in the vocal range was gone. The vocal range down to, I don't know, whatever. I don't know my numbers like you do, but so he had everything. He had the EQ on the high end just cranked, because to him that's what it sounded like it should be.
Yeah.
That was we've never forgotten the.
Well, I'm not going to top it, but come very close on the lighting end of things. I don't think this was this wasn't an old Piano Mate gig, but I was doing a gig somewhere, and partway into the show, and I just noticed that it's constantly it's a green washes, just ugly colors all the time. And eventually it's like, okay, I got to say something. So, pull up the comm and say, hey, how's it going, buddy? Good. Yeah. Could we maybe do a little less with the green washes and stick, a bit more blues and whatever? He goes, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I'm actually colorblind. So they
Yeah, so now
the
what we
LD
gotta,
was
so
put
now
those two
what
guys
we got to
together.
do is we got to put the colorblind LD and the deaf sound man together.
It'd be great.
And
show.
we got ourselves a show, boys.
Yeah. Oh, that's unbelievable. So I wanted to talk. So I know that you had a bit of a health scare
Yes,
over the last little while, and
I did.
and that was man, it scared the crap out of me when I heard that. But
It scared. It seems it scared everybody but me.
yeah,
Yeah, we finished a show in Colorado, and I felt fine. There was nothing unusual about that show, and got up the next day and got on the airplane, and we were flying through Baltimore. I remember we landed in Baltimore, and I got my backpack, got off the plane, and carrying my backpack, and I'm like, oh, I think I pulled a muscle. Like my muscles in my chest are really sore. This really hurts. So I walk to the next gate and take my backpack off and sit down, and I sit down and it goes away. That feels all right. And then get up and walk again, just like, 40 feet. And it's like, oh, there's that muscle pain again. And didn't think anything of it. Just thought it was muscle pain thought I pulled a muscle. Maybe got on the plane, flew to Buffalo, got off the plane. Same thing, walking to the luggage, baggage claim area. Same thing, pain in the chest and thinking, well, what's going on? Walking to the car, same thing. But as soon as I sat down, the pain would go away. Yeah. It wouldn't like instantly go away, but it would go away within, a minute, it'd be gone. So drive home, at home, just didn't say anything, just kind of doing my thing. Then I noticed all I would have to do is get up and go into the kitchen, and I'm getting that pain. So I'm thinking, well, so I look it up on my phone without Rebecca, who is my wife and is a nurse. Without telling her, I just look up chest pain when, walking or whatever. And it's like, sounds like I might have angina. I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, I know people have had angina before. That's no big deal. I'll get on the plane tomorrow morning to go do my tour out in western part of Canada, and everything will be, and then when I get home, I'll talk to my doctor. And had a horrible sleep that night and felt sick, felt lightheaded, felt sweaty and all that. And I remember I had to get up super early for this flight, so my alarm goes at like 4 a.m., but I didn't sleep. I was awake all night. And Rebecca says, are you okay? You tossed and turned all night long. And I said, I'm having a little bit of chest pain. And she says, oh, you probably strained a muscle, carrying that backpack of yours. She's always bugging me about the backpack. And I said, yeah, I'm just going to get in the shower and see how I feel. So I got in the shower, and then she messaged me. I heard my phone go on the counter, and I got out of the shower, and her message was, wait a minute, do you mean like chest pain? And so I went and talked to her, and I said, yeah, I think maybe I'm having a heart attack. And so we live literally 5 minutes from the best cardiac hospital, we find out, not just in Ontario, but in Canada, like 5 minutes. So she throws me in the car, and we go down there, and they do some testing, and then be like, yeah, you had a heart attack. And then they start telling, they hear my story about how I had the sensation yesterday, and I got on the airplane, and like, you are one lucky person, because I guess flying's the number one thing you don't do.
Yeah.
And they said, you're lucky to be alive right now. And if you had gotten on the plane this morning to go to Alberta, you would be a dead man right now, guaranteed.
Wow.
100%. So I had a couple of stents. I had they put the scope in there, and I had a couple of stents put in my, ends up like one of my arteries was 99% blocked, and another one was like 80% blocked. And so I've made some changes in, my diet, certain things are cut right out. But the main thing that I've done is I've added some pretty serious exercise into my routine.
Yeah.
Daily.
So do you do that on the road now as well?
Yeah. So I always obviously try to get hotels that have treadmills or bikes in them, and 99% of the time that's not a problem. 50% of the time the machines aren't the greatest, but they're fine.
Yeah,
they work.
The job done.
They work fine. And then if I can't find that, I remember one hotel we were at. The gym was okay, but they had it was 6 floors. So I do because I live by a set of it's actually 11 flights of stairs. It works out. It's 201 steps. And I go over there every day and go up and down 8 times. And it's like, what do they call that? It's not circuit training, but interval training.
Okay,
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for your help there.
No problem. I was signing it to you.
Yeah. Interval training, where you work really, really hard for a couple of minutes, and then you take a breather for 30 seconds or whatever, and then you work really, really hard again for another couple of minutes, and that's really, really good for your heart. And so I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. I've lost like 30 pounds that I didn't really think I needed to lose, and I'm also finding too the shows now are so much easier. Like, it's not like they were hard, but I used to I was winded at the end of certain songs.
Yeah, you don't realize.
No,
especially diet on the road is so
that's hard,
difficult. I really on my last tour is out about halfway through. I was like, okay, this is enough. So I've been looking at the ketogenic diet forever, and so partway through the tour, it's like, all right, woke up,
wow,
here I go, and but man, I feel so much better on the rest of the tour.
Yeah,
not that I was eating too bad. I don't, I never try to hit any fast food, but the odd time you do.
You can't help it.
Yeah. Late at night when you're done a gig.
Yep.
That's all it's open.
Yeah.
Or you order pizza. I mean, how many times we're out on the road, we'd order pizza.
Or stop at McDonald's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just constant. It's the worst thing for you.
Yeah. So we try to carry like good protein bars with us when we're on the road, just in case there's not a good viable option. I've changed the rider up in that I asked for a heart healthy, and I just give a very simple example, and most places are really good about providing it with just like baked chicken and some vegetables and no butter, and it's not been that hard, but and it was easy for us when we just did a tour of in Florida, and instead of us jumping around hotel, they rented us a house. And then we would just have to drive to the gigs. And the longest drive was maybe like 2 hours, but most of them were like 30, 45 minutes because the way Florida's designed, right? We were all in this area here. And that was great because we could literally go buy groceries and we could cook our own meals. And that made it super easy. But then we got on a real tour of the Midwest again, and it just made it's definitely tricky.
Yeah, but it's way more doable now than it used to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just getting your mindset that, okay, now I can order this burger without a bun.
Yeah.
Or, instead of French fries.
Or in my case, no burger.
Yeah. The keto, it's lots of lots
I
of
know
meat.
that diet. That diet is not heart healthy, by the way, just in case you're wondering. that keto diet. It's not my diet.
Yeah. That won't be good for you.
I am off red meat. I'm off of eggs. I'm off of bad fats.
Yeah.
So I have to stick with. I can eat some carbs, but I just have to limit what I eat carb wise.
Yeah. But it certainly makes a difference on the road. You sleep. That's another thing I've been trying to do. To make sure solid 7 to 8 hours.
Yes.
Every night.
Super important.
Yeah.
And when you add exercise into your routine, regular exercise, it's amazing how much. Like, I never had a problem sleeping before, but my sleep habits are way better than they were.
Yeah.
Once you add that exercise in.
It makes a big difference. I'm
Huge
way happier. You feel just...
You do. You feel like a different person.
Yeah.
Don't you?
And when you're done a long day, you still have steam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as if you're just completely done.
Yeah.
And that's important. I mean, you need to have that, you still need to have a little bit of gas in the tank.
Yep. I used to like feel like at the end of a show, I'm done. It's 2.5 hours and I'm done. And now we get to the end of a 2.5 hour show and I feel like I could go another hour easily, maybe more. Like, I don't know how much I could still do, but I feel the energy level is way up.
Yeah. And for me, sleep is the big thing.
Yep.
I need, some people, even they say, I was listening to some podcast lately and they're talking about sleep, and even the people say, oh, I only need 3 hours of sleep a night. It's not true. I mean, you're not functioning properly.
You can't be.
No. And it doesn't work. I mean, the first time I noticed it when I was out on tour with you, when I actually decided that I need to get off the road for a while.
Yep.
And I still remember it. It scares the crap out of me, but we're driving through the middle of Texas. I was driving and I almost passed out at the wheel.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there, I was like, oh my God, I almost just fainted.
Yeah.
And I just kind of politely and said, oh yeah, anybody else want to drive
Yeah.
for a while?
Yeah.
And you probably remember the next day we're at the airport in Atlanta and I had a piece of pizza. I still remember, and the pizza was just, my hands were shaking and, so. God,
that was your body telling you it's
Yeah.
time to make some changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
and for me, it was a heart attack telling
Yeah.
me, hey, it's time to make some changes. But the sad thing is there's so many people out there that get those warning signs and they don't do anything about them.
No.
And I've heard countless stories of people who went through exactly what I went through, and they're like, I'm not going to change my lifestyle. And a year or two later, they drop dead.
Yeah. And it's easy, especially when you're touring, spend the nights out late playing, then you stay up because you can't sleep once you get home. And
Yep.
then you're, everything gets messed up, and
Oh, yeah.
it's a rough cycle. You need to keep that really consistent, or try to,
Yep.
keep your tours and keep your performances and say, hey, I need to get some sleep. And it's just like anything. You have
That's
to get up.
super
and
important.
It's hard. Sometimes I think a lot of people don't think of performing and being a singer or an artist or a tech person, whatever, as actual job.
Yeah.
It
Because
seems
they don't see everything that goes on behind
Yeah.
the scenes, right? They don't know, how did you get here today?
Yeah, they
There's
don't.
no thought that goes into that.
No.
Yeah.
But as an artist or as a person, you sometimes forget that what you're doing is a job too.
Absolutely.
And that if you're working at a bank, you'd have to make sure, you get up early in the morning, you have to drive to work, you got to deal with all that. You go to bed at a certain time, and you tend to forget about that as an artist, because you think, we're just singing, and then, then you get, I can sleep in the van, but then you got to realize, I got to drive tomorrow or whatever it is. And it's just like, and all of a sudden, before you know it, 4 days goes by, and it's like, oh, geez.
Yeah. It's a balance thing for sure.
Yeah, it's good to get that in check. So to wrap this up,
Can we just pause for a second?
yeah,
Because I gotta hit the boys' room.
all right, do
Or
that.
I'm gonna explode.
We're going to hit the pause
You
button.
can edit that part out,
I
right?
can.
I'll down one of these,
Yeah.
and then after the show, I'll down one, and then
It's funny how, you can just about to hit the stage and you got to go pee so bad.
yeah,
Like it's so
and you don't have time.
bad. You have time. And then you go on stage and you'll play for like an hour and a half and you'll be fine. But as soon as you walk off that stage, it's bam, back again. All of a sudden,
It's weird how your mind just completely blocks
that
that
away.
out. But I have had a few moments. I remember I was playing. I was doing a tour with Farmer's Daughter.
Yeah.
Do you remember
Oh, yeah.
them? And I actually played piano in their band for the tour because I said I would love it. I would love to play piano in your band too because I love your music and I know the tunes and really okay, cool. And I guess it was one of those days where I just had a lot to drink. We're like 3/4 of the way through their show, and it's getting ready for the big piano ballad.
Yeah.
Which sadly I can't remember the name of the song, but I love the song, and it was all piano and the three girls. And I remember, and this was in Victoria at the theater there, and I remember the song before, looking at the set list, going, "Okay, I'm not gonna make it to the end of the show. I'm literally going to explode." So the song before, they didn't really need me. So I got up and I ran down the stairs into the dressing rooms and I can hear the song on the comm, right?
Yeah.
And the speaker in there. And it's one of those where I'm having I'm having one of those Michael Myers again, one of those super long pieces, and it's not showing any sign of being over. I'm looking, and in the song, we're getting in the last chorus, and I've still got all these stairs to go up, and there's no segue. I'm going right into this ballad. So I literally am running up the stairs as they're playing the last note, and the audience applauds, and I run across the backstage. I almost jump onto the piano bench, boom, and I start the ballad. And I literally, and they looked at me like, "Where the heck were you?" I explained to them afterwards what happened. I said, "No, it would have been a very bad scene. You would have had a piano player like crying and bent over in pain."
I was doing a show once, and I was, you head down in the mix, whatever, and I look back up, and the bass player was gone, but the bass was still playing. I couldn't,
Wireless?
No, he was plugged in,
Oh, wow.
and so the show, there was like 2 songs left, and like the song finished, and he finished, and then we started up one last song, and he played the whole last song, and there was like, there's no bass player. Where's the bass player? Well, he had to go pee so bad. He peed his pants. And he went and crouched behind his bass amp.
Oh,
he had a big Ampac bass,
Oh,
and he stayed behind and he played the rest. But he was gone. Like I just looked up and the bass player's gone.
Oh,
but he just
I remember Charlie Major's bass player. I can't remember the guy's name, but I remember him at an outdoor festival playing, not feeling good. So he backs up and he doesn't have a stool or anything. He just kind of sits on the drum riser and he just keeps playing. And as he's playing, he bends over and he's throwing up while he's playing on stage, just kind of making sure nobody. Well, we all saw him. It was pretty deadly.
Yeah, those things happen.
Yep.
All right, to wrap this up, I figured what's in your gas tank now as far as where do you see yourself? What's left for Jim Witter? Where do you feel like you is there anything left that you feel like you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, as of late, I've really been getting back into the songwriting and for myself. And when I say for myself, I mean just because I went through years where I wasn't writing, and I think when you are a songwriter, I think it's just something that's naturally in you, and you can't just stop doing it. I think it's like any of the other artistic kind of outlets. And for the last few years, I've really just felt this desire. It's like I've got a lot of songs in here that I want to get out there. I want to get them at least down on record them and and maybe not for me, maybe for other artists.
Yeah.
But I still want to produce them. And I think it's something to do with having the heart attack was kind of one of those things where it made me step back and realize, oh, I'm not immortal. I'm not going to be around forever. And I did realize that I've still got a lot of ideas and a lot of material inside of me that I want to get out there. So so I've really started getting back into the songwriting thing, and who knows what'll happen with it. I mean, I'm gonna go and see if there's any publishers that are interested in looking at these tunes, and see if any artists out there are interested, and maybe doing some co-writing again and getting back into that. And it's weird because I haven't done it in so long, and it's kind of like riding a bike, but whereas you don't forget, but it's almost like I've got myself a new bike where it's the wheels go this way. Like it's a whole new way of learning how to ride. Getting back at it again. It's exciting for me. It's been the last few months of just getting ideas again. My brain is like back into that gear where I'll just be driving and I'll get a song idea and I'll have to get out my phone and put on the voice memos and throw the idea down. So I've got like just tons of songs started, some completed, and we'll see where that goes. And I mean, as far as the live performance going, I'm not going to stop. I think I'm going to do things smarter. I think I'm going to do. I'd like to do kind of what we did this past year, and that is we worked really hard from January through till May, a lot.
Yeah, you're busy.
And then maybe do that, maybe plan the touring that way, and then take the summer and the fall and the winter off. And I don't mean take it off, like use that time to devote to writing and demoing and seeing if anybody still wants to hear any of these songs.
I'm sure they do. That's a great idea. It's nice to, 'cause I know for me, I've been out of the studio for a long time, and back in the day when we were doing a lot of stuff in here, we did tons of stuff, producing for a bunch of other people and that, and but then musical avenues take you different places, and our theater here started taking up a lot of my time, and touring started taking up a lot of my time, and all this stuff. But man, it's nice when you get the time to slide back into it again.
Isn't it a happy place?
It is. It's.
I know you posted a picture on Instagram of you sitting at your Raven consoles there, and just kind of like, I think your caption was something like, "It feels so good to have a day to spend in the studio again." And my home studio, actually, which is nothing like yours, but my home studio became like a catch-all, just of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've been cleaning it up lately and getting it back into shape, and it just feels so great to know that I've got some time now to spend out there and write and demo, and I'm hoping maybe we can do some more work.
I love to
together in the studio, because those are some of my fondest memories of the times here at your studio, doing the work that we did for those years together, whether it was my own material or whether it was working with other artists, and just the creative energy was just always that to me is like my favorite place to be.
Thank you. I agree. I feel the same. Like I listen back to every once in a while, you pop up a computer and you say, oh, there's something we did from years ago. To listen to it. And it's just like, oh yeah, that was
good times. Yeah. Great memories.
Yeah, really, really
I
good.
remember your mom always bringing incredible food. I was telling one of the guys in the band today, I said, I remember sitting in the control room and we'd be working on a mix. It'd be really late at night. I think your mom has maybe already gone to bed or something. And she'd walk in with, I just whipped up some strawberry shortcake.
She'd always do, or some sandwich. She'll come,
or some insane sandwich.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not talking like Wonder Bread. I'm talking like home-baked bread that's about 3 inches thick, a slice.
Yeah.
And some crazy sandwich that's just like you bite into it and you go, this is the best thing I've ever had.
I remember, I forget what we were doing, but we were in the studio and she brought in these sandwiches, and I remember you taking a bite and you were like, literally you stopped for a second. It's like, this is the best sandwich I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, it was. It was, because I remember too, it had cilantro in it or something, and it was like, what is this? Like, who makes a sandwich and makes it an absolute piece of art? Like, it was the best thing I'd ever had. I remember that.
Yeah,
moment.
she's awesome.
She's pretty, but that's another artistic gift, right?
Yeah.
To
Oh,
be
totally.
be able to create food that is just when you it looks beautiful, and then when you eat it, you go, oh my God.
I remember doing a session years ago, and Wendell Ferguson was on the session, and it was just a in and out type of thing. I had a bunch of players in, I think, just doing overdubs.
Yeah.
So he was like one of the first guys in. He was done, and he left, and my studio's part of a house, so he went into the kitchen. Mom and Kim, my sister, were in there cooking. Why? I went through like 3 musicians had come in and gone, and I was like, I just thought Wendell had left out another door, and he's long gone. Then I hear him laughing or whatever he was doing. Well, Mom and Kim were making donuts in the kitchen. And I guess it was like a production line. He was just sitting there eating. Every time they make a batch, she'd be eating the donuts just continuously for hours. He was in there. And he was just sat there, and he just spent the whole day in there eating.
I could see doing that in your mom's kitchen.
Yeah, it was great.
And I remember many meals with your mom and your dad and Kim and Brad even sometimes. I don't know if Brad was here all the time, but we would just sit in the kitchen there and just, oh man, the meals were just stellar. That was one of my fondest memories of coming and working here.
It's I miss that time a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and I miss spending the time with you as much. Obviously we used to see each other all the time, but not as much anymore. But
and life gets in the way, right?
It does. But you can reconnect, and that's the great thing about being a musician and artist and that field. It doesn't matter how much time you spent away from anybody. As soon as you back, it's just like you haven't left.
Yep.
And and your family's fantastic too. I mean, Becky's
very
fantastic,
lucky.
and all your kids are great. And one thing I always respected about you is that you really kept a great, strong family bond, and it's really respectable, and I think it's important. And especially in the music industry, it's tough to do that. You're out and you're gone, and you're in again, you're gone again, you're in again. So it's tough to do, but you did a remarkable job.
Well, I got lucky too, because I mean, when Becky and I first started dating, she knew what I did, and she totally got that if she was going to stay with me and we were going to get married, that this was what life was going to be about. And I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not times when I don't hear complaining, but it's nothing to do. The complaining isn't about what it is that I do and the lifestyle that we've chosen. It might just be, it's just trivial stuff.
Yeah.
I got really, really lucky with her because I know that there's countless people who would not put up with having a husband who does what I do. Because it's true, we're literally away sometimes for crazy amounts of time.
Yeah, and you miss important things, and you can't reschedule a show. And
no,
I mean, it is what it is. You have to, like we said earlier, it's just you got to get to the show. You got to make it. That's what
I've missed tons of big things. I've missed birthdays. I've missed special events. I missed my daughter Roslyn singing with Keith Urban in front of 20,000 people, singing a duet with him. I missed that because I had a show the very same night.
Yeah.
That, it's not easy. I kick myself every day for missing the birthdays and missing all that kind of stuff, because you can never get those moments back again. But at the same time, it's the sacrifice that you have to make to be in this business. And I mean, if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, then this is not the business for you.
No, you have to be able to, I mean, obviously I've stayed single because it just, it's hard to find that person that who's going to understand, and it's easier.
Yep.
For me, it's just, it's just way easier. But
yeah, I got really lucky.
Yeah, they're a great family, and it's like I said, I always you see when the family's together, you can tell everyone, you stick together, and everyone, you go out to see a show and you're close by, the whole family comes.
Yep.
It's, they've seen you a million times,
Yep.
but they still go to support.
Yep.
And it's fantastic. I think that's
the
very
fact that
important.
my 23-year-old daughter wants to come and see me perform tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is well, I mean, I'm just lucky. I've got great kids.
Yeah.
And a great family. I wouldn't absolutely trade any of that for, any sort of level of fame or anything like that.
Yeah, because it comes down when, the show's over, the show's only, a split second of your day and your lifetime. You figure those amount of hours that you perform over a lifetime, it's still a small amount of time. When you get back to it, it's still just, what you got is your family. Right?
That's what you're left with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's even on that. I think that's important. We're almost at 3 hours.
Wow.
That went by fast. Podcast number
3
1.
hours.
3 hours of sitting and chatting.
That's crazy.
Thank you for being my first guest.
I am honored that you asked me to be your first guest.
This is awesome. Let's do it again in a year. Hopefully I'm still going and still doing this.
I'd love to.
And
I've got 3 hours free next. I'll have to get my people to.
next June when you come back to the theater and do your show, we'll do
we'll do it again.
We'll do another one or sooner. I like this.
And I can't
still
wait.
Tons of stuff I love to.
I
chat
know you've
about.
got some great other guests lined up, and I'm excited to hear what's going to come out of the studio here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's going to be fun. I like hearing the stories. I love hearing, people's, and everyone wants to hear that. You don't know where everyone came from.
Well, you hope. I mean, as an artist, you hope people like to hear this stuff. But for me, it's almost therapeutic, and for me and you, it's been a great opportunity for us to just sit down and gab again. Because so many times when we do see each other, it's work, and we don't really get to sit down and chat. I mean, I know we go and grab lunch every once in a while, but that's always sometimes quick too.
Yeah, it's still quick, and you don't really, how's it going? You use short forms for everything, right?
So yeah.
All right, wrapping up number 1, In Session with Darren Walters, and you can find me on Instagram, Darren Walters, the number 1, and on Facebook at Darren Walters. And the podcast is going to be on DarrenWaltersPodcast.com. And make sure that you go to iTunes, subscribe, and tell your friends and family. Lots of great podcasts from great musicians, artists, producers, tech people, and we'll talk about a bunch of different things. Once again, thanks to Jim, and it's early enough. I'm going to go cut some grass.
Peace, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.